Okay, so last time on the Tatami Galaxy, um, Master Higuchi mentioned that the main character might be taking his place. So we don't know anything about it. So let's see if we can figure out some more information about this. In life, the future just past your nose is shrouded in darkness. From that bottomless darkness, we must unerringly seize those things that will benefit us. For the purpose of learning that philosophy firsthand, Master Higuchi proposed Blackout Hot Pot. He said that the skill of plucking the ingredient you want out of a hot pot, even in pitch darkness, is one that is essential for surviving our dog eat dog contemporary society. But that can't be true, right? Yeah, he's just trying to Master Higuchi is just trying to go out to eat, and he wants to eat on their dime. So this is just something he made up. That's my gut. Gathered that evening at Master Higuchi's 4.5 mat tatami room for Blackout Hot Pot were Ozu, Hanuki, and me. Akashi had an essay due soon, so she didn't come. I contended that I also had an extremely troublesome lab report to turn in, but that contention was rejected out of hand. Terrible sexism, no matter how you look at it. You'll be fine. I'll have the printing office whip something up for you, said Ozu, but relying on Ozu to acquire forged reports from the printing office was what made my academic decay definitive. We were each to bring ingredients, but there was a rule to keep their nature a secret until they were done simmering. Ozu was apparently still steamed over the aborted plot to abduct Kaori. It's Blackout Hot Pot, so anything goes, right everybody? He said with a nasty grin and laid in some shady foodstuffs. This was Ozu, who fueled himself on other people's misfortunes, so I was beside myself with anxiety that he would add something unspeakable. Yeah, I'd be concerned too. Ozu hated vegetables, but I knew that mushrooms, specifically, he didn't count as fit for human consumption. So I brought a ton of tasty mushrooms. Hanuki had a mischievous look on her face as well. In the 4.5 mat tatami room, so dark we couldn't really see each other's faces, the first round of ingredients went into the pot. Master Higuchi immediately said, dig in, dig in. It's not done cooking yet, I said. Listen, everyone, when your chopsticks touch something, you have to take responsibility and eat it, ordered Master Higuchi. It seemed Hanuki was drinking beer. In the dark, it doesn't really feel like beer, she grumbled. I don't see how I'm supposed to get drunk if I can't even see it. She has weird logic. I met Hanuki for the first time through Master Higuchi in the summer of my first year. Since then, I had often encountered her in his room. She was beautiful, but she had a face like the wife of a Sengoku-era warlord. No, you could say she had the face of the commander himself. That was how full of ambition her features were. I always felt that if the era had been right, it was the face of someone destined for feudal lordship. She had the power to slice Ozu or me in half with a single slash if she felt like it. Her favorite foods were ethyl alcohol and castella. She worked as a dental hygienist at Kubozuka Dental next to the Mikage Bashi Bridge. I'd been invited a few times, but I'm not about to lie there unresisting while someone sticks random rods and pipes into my mouth. And the idea of Hanuki doing it came attached to the image of her removing the plaque from my teeth with the blade of a naginata. It made me wonder about my chances of getting out of there without ending up a bloody mess, and I couldn't convince myself to go. I had debated about this with Ozu many times. Hanuki gave off vibes, like she might be the master's lover, but it wasn't clear. Yes, she wasn't a disciple, and of course she wasn't his wife either. She was a mystery. Hanuki had been in the same year as Master Higuchi, and she had known Jogasaki for a long time too. Jogasaki even went to Kubozuka Dental for regular checkups, so he and Hanuki saw each other a few times a year. It wasn't clear what kind of history Master Higuchi, Jogasaki, and Hanuki had, but I was convinced Hanuki knew the story behind the masochistic proxy war. Ozu and I once waited till she was drunk and tried to get her to tell us, but we were outplotted. Never again did we try to get her to tell us anything. Eating things you can't see is creepier than you might think. It's even creepier when one of the 4 people seated around your hot pot is the crystallized essence of ill will known as Ozu. Once the pot had simmered, we ate, and every new mystery food or food-like item that appeared was overwhelming. "This thing is squirming," shrieked Hanuki. "Oh, gosh." And I groaned when the thing she hurled my way hit me in the forehead. "Ugh." I threw the squirmy thing in the direction of Ozu, and the direction Ozu seemed to be, and heard a muffled scream from over there, too. "Oh, yeah!" Later, we learned it was just a curly noodle, but in the dark, it seemed to be a long, thin worm. "What's this, an alien's umbilical cord?" asked Ozu. "You were probably the one who put it in, so you should be the one to eat it." "No." "Gentlemen, we mustn't waste food," Master Higuchi intoned like the head of the household, and we quieted down. Eventually, Ozu appeared to have grabbed a shiitake. "Ugh, it's a clump of fungus," he shrieked, and I smiled. Meanwhile, my heart nearly stopped when I picked up something like a thumb-sized yokai, but when I calmed down to investigate, it turned out to be a firefly squid. By the time we reached the 3rd round, the ingredients had gotten bizarrely sweet, and there was a beery smell in the air. "Hey, Ozu, you added sweet bean paste," I screamed at him. "Eehee," Ozu laughed, "but Hanuki put beer in." "You knew it was me? I thought it would add some depth to the flavor." "It's so deep I can't tell what's what anymore," I said. "A hot pot abyss." "Just so we're all clear, it wasn't me who put the marshmallows in," Ozu declared quietly. Apparently he had grabbed a marshmallow. I ate a shrimp that tasted like sweet beans and some cabbage covered in marshmallow goo. When I checked on Master Higuchi next to me, he was eating everything happily, panting to dispel the heat, a feat that was certainly to his credit. I talked about how Akashi had put a stop to the cowrie abduction plan. Hanuki burst out laughing. "Akashi is right. Abducting a doll would be vicious," she said. Ozu was disappointed. "Seeing as I planned this whole operation, please consider my perspective. Jogasaki dyed Master's yukata pink," he argued. "That's a low blow if I ever saw one. But it's funny, isn't it? Jogasaki's prank had some charm." Disappointed, Ozu clammed up and harmonized completely with the darkness. Ozu was always such a dark presence to begin with. It was impossible to tell where he was. "I've known Jogasaki for such a long time, too," Hanuki waxed nostalgic. "He got kicked out of his club, right? I think that was just as overkill as the abduction plot. Wouldn't you say you got carried away, too, Ozu?" Hanuki must have been glaring in the direction Ozu might have been, but Ozu stayed hidden and didn't reply. "Jogasaki's in no position to be spending all his time on club activities anyhow," said Master Higuchi. "He's getting older." "That's not very persuasive when you say it, Higuchi," Hanuki said. Having eaten a bunch of mystery objects, we got full faster than usual, so from then on we quit eating and chatted about this and that. Hanuki seemed to be knocking back the drinks still. Ozu's embittered silence was eerie. "Ozu, why aren't you saying anything?" Master Higuchi asked, perplexed. "Are you still there?" He didn't answer, so Hanuki said, "If Ozu isn't there, then let's talk about Ozu's girlfriend." "Ozu has a girlfriend?" I asked. "They've been going out for 2 years. "Oh?" "They're in the same club, and I've heard she's so sophisticated and charming. You'd think she was some kind of aristocrat. I've never actually seen her, though. One time she threatened to dump him, so he called me for advice and cried all night." Okay, so we still don't know if this girl is real. Ozu, lurking in the darkness, kicked up a fuss. "Lies, all lies." "So you are here," Master Higuchi said gleefully. "Things are going well with her, then?" Hanuki asked. "I exercise my right to remain silent," Ozu declared in the darkness. "What was her name again?" Hanuki was thinking. "I'm pretty sure it was something like Kohi..." She got that far before Ozu started wailing, "I reserve the right to remain silent," and "I'm going to call my lawyer," so she stopped laughing. "You bastard, how are you getting freaky while I'm getting nothing?" I got swept up in my anger, but Ozu feigned ignorance. "Whatever are you talking about?" As I glared at the darkness in Ozu's direction, Master Higuchi was poking recklessly at the hot pot next to me. "Oh, I've got a big one," he mumbled. "It's kind of squishy," he intoned, and then he must have tried to take a bite. "This doesn't seem to be food," he said quietly. "Surely putting inedible objects in is against the rules. Shall we turn the lights on?" When I stood up and turned on the light, Hanuki and Ozu both had stunned looks on their faces. A spongy little bear plushie was relaxing all plump on Master Higuchi's plate. It was soggy and hot soup colored. "What a cute plushie," said Hanuki. "Which one of you put this in the hot pot?" asked Master Higuchi. "I couldn't eat this even if I wanted to." But neither Hanuki, Ozu, nor I knew anything about it. The reason I didn't think Ozu was lying was that he clearly didn't have even a fraction of the purity required to come up with something so adorable. "I'll take it," said Hanuki, and she took it and gave it a careful wash in the sink. Hanuki is a pleasant person, but when she drinks too much, she's a handful. Her face gets paler and paler, her eyes glaze over, and suddenly she's licking people's faces. Oh yeah, she licks people's faces, I forgot about that. As Ozu and I scrambled away from Hanuki, who was trying to get us up against the wall to lick our faces, I was strangely aroused, but a gentleman can't get horny just because a woman licks his face. And Master Higuchi was watching the whole thing as if we were a fascinating party trick. Hanuki made the incredibly selfish proposition, "I'll give you this whole castella the dentist gave me, so spoon with me," but I firmly rejected her. Eventually, Ozu fell asleep, resulting in an even more indecent than usual expression on his indecent face. Hanuki had relaxed as well and was nodding off. "I'm going on a trip," Master Higuchi said in a sing-song voice. He doesn't drink much, but there's a strange mechanism by which, when Hanuki drinks like a fish, he seems to get drunk too. "Where are you going to go?" Hanuki said, looking up sleepily. "My plan is to circumnavigate the globe, though I don't know how many years it'll take. Want to come with, Hanuki? I know you speak English." "Don't be ridiculous. How stupid." "Master, do you speak English?" I asked. I scoff at the idea of learning English without putting up a fight. "But Higuchi, what about the thing?" asked Hanuki. "Don't worry, I have a plan. But hey, it's already after midnight. We need to go eat Neko ramen." "Should I wake Ozu up?" Hanuki asked, but Master Higuchi shook his head. "Let's let him sleep. Just the three of us is fine," he grinned. "We're going to meet Jogasaki." Master Higuchi leisurely strolled down Mikage Dori past Shimogamo Shrine. Since it was late, things were quiet, and the only sounds were the rustling of Tadasu no Mori's trees and the occasional car coming down Shimogamo Hondori. I followed silently behind Master Higuchi. Hanuki was walking unsteadily, but she seemed to have sobered up to some extent. "My good sir," Master said, putting smile wrinkles in his eggplant face, "I'm going to make you a proxy, just so you know." "A proxy for what?" I asked in surprise. "Hoo-hoo, just be ready." "Why not Ozu?" "Don't worry about Ozu. He has a different role." Neko Ramen is a ramen stand rumored to make its soup from cats. Regardless of whether that's true or not, the flavor is unparalleled. I was stuffed with weird things from the blackout hot pot, but remembering the taste of the ramen, I thought a bowl would fit. In the chilly darkness stood a lone stall with a shining light bulb. Despite the cold night air, it had an aura of cheerful warmth. Master Higuchi snorted in amusement and gestured with a jerk of his chin. Looking where he indicated, I saw someone had arrived ahead of us. He was sitting on a stool chatting with the owner. When we approached, the owner looked up with a "yo." Then the guy sitting on the stool sat up and looked our way. His chiseled features were illuminated by the orangey glow of the light bulb. You're late, said Jogasaki. Sorry, said Master Higuchi. Haven't seen you in a while, Jogasaki. How have you been? Hanuki bobbed her head. I'm the very picture of health, thank you for asking. He flashed his straight white teeth. We took 3 stools next to him, sitting in a row. I wasn't quite sure what to do with myself and shrank into the far corner. What was this gathering about anyhow? For one thing, I had never seen Master Higuchi and Jogasaki together before, so I wondered whether this wasn't actually something important. Thus opened the Higuchi-Jogasaki Reconciliation Conference. Well, maybe it's about time we end this, said Master Higuchi. Aw. I like this. Yeah, nodded Jogasaki. Thus ended the Higuchi-Jogasaki Reconciliation Conference. Okay, that was short. This book's so goofy. It was a long one this time, said the Neko Ramen owner. 5 years? Longer? I forget, Jogasaki said with an air of indifference. Pretty much exactly 5 years, right? The previous proxy's reconciliation conference was around this time of year, said Master Higuchi. I see. So 5 years on the dot then, said the Neko Ramen owner. What are your predecessors up to? Oh? Mine works at the courthouse in Nagasaki. That's his hometown. How about yours, Jogasaki? I wonder. He was so random. I have no clue what happened to him, said Jogasaki. We haven't talked since he dropped out. Your predecessor was a lot like Higuchi. Detached from the world. How did he end up being your master anyway, the owner asked. I don't know. That's just the direction things went, I guess. Okay, so Jogasaki had a master too. I wonder if Jogasaki took over the position of his master. But I thought Higuchi was a god. Okay, well, we'll just keep reading. The owner laid out our ramen bowls in a row. The 4 of them had a mysterious sense of fellowship, and I wasn't in on it. For starters, I wasn't even aware that the owner of Neko Ramen had known the masters for so long. Surprised, I modestly, quietly slipped my ramen. Him? Jogasaki said, looking at me. Yeah, he's my proxy, Master Higuchi cheerfully clapped me on the shoulder. Is yours not coming tonight? That dumbass. He said he had plans, so he couldn't come. What is it, Ozu? Jogasaki smiled. He's a hardcore weirdo, but I'm sure he'll be a proper proxy. Yours had better be prepared. Something to look forward to, Master Higuchi said. He'll definitely be with me on the day of the duel. The duel? The owner winced beyond the steam. Huh, you're really gonna do the duel? We sure are. The duel on Kamo Ohashi is part of the whole tradition, said Master Higuchi. The mysterious conference ended amicably, and Jogasaki zipped away on his motorbike. It's about time to kick Ozu out and get some good sleep, said Master Higuchi with a considerable yawn. Master, I have no idea what's going on, I said. What's all this proxy business? I'll explain in detail tomorrow. I'm too sleepy right now. He went back to Shimogamo Yusuisu. I was ordered to escort Hanuki back to her apartment along Kawabata Dori. She walked along the dark road, toying gently with the undefined bear plushie that had come out of the blackout hot pot. Perhaps due to the girlish fidgeting she was focused on, the Sengoku-era warlord ambition was less noticeable. On the contrary, she seemed rather lonely, more like a damsel in distress. Puzzled, I walked alongside her, down quiet Mikage Dori. Jogasaki is pretty, chill, huh? When I said that, she giggled. He's honestly not all that different from Higuchi. Really? He certainly doesn't seem the type to carry on a prank war with him, but he gets a kick out of it. He just doesn't show it. I find that hard to believe, I said. He hasn't really had any friends besides Higuchi for a long time. After that, she fell silent. She squeezed the bear. The spongy plushie made a terribly heart-wrenching face. Eventually, we came upon the Takano River. Mikage Bashi is a little is a round little bridge, and if you look east on it, you can see Mount Daimonji. During the Bon holiday, the bridge apparently fills with a crowd of people looking up at the burning kanji character. Incidentally, I've never seen the Okuribi ritual. Hanuki was very quiet. Was this the calm before the storm? I had a bad feeling I couldn't shake. It was later than one would have expected, but was something evil nested inside her beginning to writhe, trying to burst out? When I looked over, her face was an anxious pale color, her lips were tightly pursed, and while it might have been my imagination, she seemed to be shaking slightly. It was as if she had wagered her life on this resolve. Hanuki, are you by chance not feeling well? I asked cautiously, and she grinned. It's that obvious, huh? With that, she abruptly clung to the bridge's railing. Then she vomited in the most casual, gorgeous way I'd ever seen. She watched the Neko ramen she had just eaten sorrowfully fall into the Takano River with what seemed like great interest. When she had thus let her guard down, the bear plushie she'd been holding rolled tragically off the railing like a rice ball. Oh no! And that bear likes to, be in that river because they found the river in the previous universe, right? Ah, she said and leaned over the railing, and I used all of my non-existent strength to pull her back. We nearly both went after the ramen and the plushie. The bear plushie gracefully spun as it fell towards the water surface, putting all of its inherent cuteness on display in its last hurrah. Eventually, a tiny splish sounded. Ah, it fell, she grumbled in regret, and rested her chin on the railing. I wonder how far he'll float, she said in a sing-song voice. He'll go towards the Kamo River Delta, near the Kamo River. Enter the Kamo River, then the Yodo River, and then Osaka Bay. I broke it down for her. Hanuki sniffed, and stood up. Fine, go wherever you want, she said in a strangely theatrical way, and hawked a loogie. That poor, unfortunate bear plushie. After making sure Hanuki got to her apartment, I headed back to Shimogamo Yusu Iso. I thought for a second there was a horribly filthy beast sitting outside room 110, but it was Ozu. Go the fuck home, I said, but he replied, oh, don't be so mean, as he barged into my room and lay down in a corner of my 4.5 mat tatami room like a corpse. Where did you all go off without me, he asked. Neko ramen. No fair, I'm so sad I might disappear. Perfect. He mewled a little longer, but then he seemed to get sick of it and went to sleep. When I did my best to push him into a dusty corner of my 4.5 mat tatami room, he protested, "Mrrr." I burrowed into my futon and became absorbed into my thoughts. Somehow, I ended up designated as our master's successor, but what is the masochistic proxy war even? What happened in the past between Master Higuchi and Jogasaki? What's this duel that's happening tomorrow on Kamo Ohashi? What does the owner of Neko Ramen have to do with it? Or does he have nothing to do with it? Will I have to carry on this unproductive prank battle with a successor Jogasaki will bring? Is escape no longer a possibility? And what kind of guy will my opponent be? What if he's the type to kick those who are down and butter up anyone stronger than him? Someone selfish and arrogant, lazy and contrary, who never studies, has not a crumb of pride, and fuels himself on other people's misfortunes. What then? The main character, he can just leave. He doesn't have to keep hanging out with these people. He's stressing over all this what if, and the Master Higuchi, he's being so secretive. And if Master Higuchi is going to be so secretive, then the main character should just leave, It's like, look, tell me what's going on or I'm out of here. But he just gets himself into situations and he feels like he just has to stay forever and then just put up with all this weirdness. He should take more control of his life. He doesn't have to deal with this if he doesn't want to. And I mean, even Ozu, he says no. So I think the main character needs to learn how to say no and put boundaries around himself. I sat up and listened to Ozu's sleeping breath. I had such an unambiguously bad feeling, awful really, that I couldn't look away even if I wanted to. It spread like a bitter juice through my breast, and any efforts to deny it were futile. I was so dissatisfied with my state that I had even sought an interpretation from a fortune teller. So what was I doing? Exactly. He's not happy, so he should be able to leave. It's not like he's permanently tied to these people. I was supposed to be seizing my due chance and escaping into a new life, but far from seizing anything, wasn't I actually just driving myself further into a bottleneck there was no coming back from? Dude, you can leave. Paying no mind to my worries, Ozu slept, his face irritatingly innocent. The next day, I kicked half-asleep Ozu out of my room and went to school. But the thought of the evening's duel on Kamo Ohashi made me antsy. I hurried through my labs and returned to Shimogamo Yusu Iso. I tried going to Master Higuchi's room, but a chalkboard hanging from his door read, "At the bathhouse." He must have been purifying his body for the upcoming battle. I went back to my room, and as I listened to the coffee burble, I stared at the castella Hanuki had given me after the blackout hot pot. Hanuki sure could be cruel. I felt that it was actually quite depressing to eat this much castella on one's own. Wrong as a human being, and it would have been better to enjoy it more gracefully with someone pleasant, sipping some tea or something, someone like. I was surprised to find myself thinking, Akashi, he still likes her in this iteration. I was starting to think if maybe he'd end up with Hanuki this time around. Indulging in such reprehensible fantasies despite having had the horrible misfortune to be selected as a successor in the mysterious masochistic proxy war, and forced to stand at the gateway to an even more unproductive future, whether I wanted to or not, was pretty hardcore escapism. I needed to learn a thing or two about shame. Overhead, a big moth that had slipped into my room at some point was fluttering around the fluorescent light. Oh yeah, Kashi hates moths, I recalled, and like an idiot became absorbed in the sweet memory of us falling down the stairs together. I sliced the castella with a fruit knife and groaned as I crammed the pieces into my mouth one by one. Just as I was reaching for my porn library to keep myself from being seized by a reprehensible fantasy impulse, I heard a knock. When I opened the door, Akashi, who had been standing in the hallway, shrieked and recoiled. I wondered if I had a face like a gross monster driven by lust, but she was just afraid of the moth in my room. I calmly repelled the moth and welcomed her in like a gentleman. Master Higuchi called and told me to come this evening, but he doesn't seem to be home, she said. I briefed her on Master Higuchi and Jogasaki's reconciliation conference. Wow, sounds like an awful lot happened while I was writing my essay. I'm disqualified as a disciple. Don't worry, it was all very sudden. I poured a cup of coffee and handed it to her. After taking a sip, she said, I brought you something. The Polonia box she took out of her bag I had seen somewhere before. When she took the lid off, that elusive scrub brush we had searched for together was nested inside. Now you won't be expelled, right? She said with a straight face, but the compassion of this junior disciple for her senior nearly obliterated my tear ducts. I'm so sorry, I moaned. It's fine, she said. Anyhow, would you like some castella? I offered her some cake. She took a slice and bit into it. You were busy with your essay, right? I feel so bad, I said. Yeah, I just barely made the deadline. What was the essay about? You're in the engineering department, right? I'm in the engineering department, but my major is architecture. The essay was about the history of architecture. The history of architecture? Yes, I wrote about Roman architecture, temples, the Colosseum, and so on. Colossio! Just then we heard a knock. Are you there, my good sir? It's duel time. It was Master Higuchi's voice. The master's face was gleaming after his bath, but his stubble remained. I went and had a soak with Ozu, he said. Then where's Ozu? He went to Jogasaki's place. Ozu has been Jogasaki's henchman all along. What a character, that guy. He pulled a hand inside his yukata and cackled. He was the one who died by yukata pink. Of course, I'm sure you all had realized this by now, gentle readers. I didn't. This game was a twist. The fall of the previous year, when Jogasaki was dethroned as head of his film club and was lamenting his isolation, Ozu began frequenting his place, listening to his complaints. Oh, yeah, that's right. Ozu had access to Jogasaki's place, and condemning the inferior oafs who had driven him out. Of course, as I had already mentioned, the ultimate villain who had incited those inferior oafs was Ozu. Thus, Ozu slipped into Jogasaki's heart like the devil himself and secured the status of right-hand man. Wow, Ozu is so sneaky. That is kind of devilish, to like befriend someone just to betray them. Hanging out with nothing in particular to do for days on end, they got along well. So when Jogasaki found out that Ozu was a disciple of Master Higuchi, he said, "Why don't you act as my agent then?" And Ozu grinned like an unscrupulous salesman and agreed, saying, "We're a couple of bad boys, aren't we, Jogasaki?" Thus, the most strange and pointless stage ever was set, thanks to Ozu's behind-the-scenes machinations of dubious intent. Ozu took Master Higuchi's orders and stuffed a dozen types of insects into Jogasaki's mailbox, meanwhile taking Jogasaki's orders and dyeing Master Higuchi's yukata pink, repeating these bizarre coming and goings, displaying the operational capacity of 10 men, enjoying his repulsive double agenthood. You don't even have to think very hard to see that Ozu was the only one running around so busy. What on earth did he mean to accomplish by giving all of his vitality over to this dangerous game played with nigh virtuosic skill? It was a mystery that wouldn't be solved so easily, but neither was it necessary to solve. I figured out that Ozu was Jogasaki's agent, but his antics amused me, so I left him alone, said Master Higuchi. So you're saying he rigged everything, I said? That means he had you and Jogasaki dancing in the palm of his hand. I'm impressed, said Akashi. Yeah, Master Higuchi didn't seem pissed off at all. His idiocy knows no bounds. One might even say that this is unprecedented in all the annals of the masochistic proxy war. His name will go down in history. Then he said, "Oh, Costella," and dug in before I could even offer him any. Finally, with an exuberant air, he said, "Now then, tonight is the night of the Kamo Ohashi duel." Master, could you please slow down for a second? When I expressed my bewilderment, he nodded. You probably want to know what it's all about. Perhaps it's time I explain the masochistic proxy war. What is the masochistic proxy war? This fruitless yet noble battle has its root in the pre-war period. The trigger is said to be a clash of high schooler hearts, or possibly a drinking contest featuring unrefined sake, but the details have already sunk into the dark corners of history. The initial fight dragged on for a long time. They battled all throughout their student days. The fight went on so long that it hadn't reached a conclusion when their graduation came around. These men, whose names have been lost to history, gave up on reaching an outcome while they were in school. They could have simply made up, but these two were stubborn, so they refused. Still, they were tired, so they also refused to continue fighting. Yet they were also proud, so they also refused to let this matter go unsettled. Thus trapped, the novel measure they came up with was to have two underclassmen unrelated to their argument carry on the fight as their proxies. Wow. Thus began this generation-long current flowing through the university's history. There are no records of how the fight was carried out in those early days, but if one thing is certain, it's that the unwritten law that proxies must devote themselves to unproductive pranks had been established. Oh, the underclassmen forced to be proxied had no personal grudges against each other. They were merely handed the format. You must fight. They continued the battle but didn't force a conclusion. They didn't know whether it was theirs to conclude. They, as their seniors had done, passed their battle on to some underclassmen. They postponed a decision. This it does seem very human. Like it's so wacky and it doesn't make any sense, but this is so human. You think about countries who have like centuries, even thousands of years of history just fighting each other because they still hold on to grudges from the past. So this is like a small example of something like that on a very, very small scale. But when blown up into like a countrywide thing, things like this can happen. Paying absolutely no mind to the eventual Pacific War, the loss of it, the post war recovery period, the student protests, or any other social movement, the battle was inherited on an unbroken chain. The reason for it was forgotten, and only the format remained. Then the format was repeated until it became tradition, codifying the actions of the proxies. In the late 1980s, Neko Ramen was established as a venue for reconciliation talks and meetings about succession. The outgoing proxies had a final duel on Kamo Ohashi, and that completes the handoff. Oh, the newly appointed proxies must drag the fight on for as long as they can, find promising successors, and get them to carry on this traditional battle. From that day on, Ozu became Jogasaki's proxy, and I became Master Higuchi's, in the sense that proxies do battle via unproductive bullying against each other. People started calling it the masochistic proxy war at some point. Technically, it would be the masochistic proxy, and there's like a whole bunch of proxies war since we were the 30th proxies. Master Higuchi. So did Master Higuchi? Is that why he's like such a bum? Because he's stuck in this stupid war doing unproductive pranks for 8 years? He risked like destroying his life over this? Master Higuchi and Jogasaki were merely the 29th proxies. There was no honorific strife deeply rooted in their past. It was just that no one wanted to be the one to let the tradition lapse, and no one knew how to end it. In other words, there was no reason for this fight. Man, make me the proxy, I'll end it. Is that true, I asked? If you won't be my proxy, my reconciliation with Jogasaki can't go forward. I'm sure it'll be worth your while, given how twisted Ozu is. That's not funny. Master Higuchi abruptly prostrated himself. I didn't think the protection of this tradition was worth getting so worked up about, but if my master was planting his forehead on the ground, I couldn't say no. Yes, you can. Still sensing that my rose-colored campus life was receding to a place where I would never be able to reach it again. I was crying on the inside. You have a choice. This is your life. You don't have to, ruin it over this stupid battle. Understood, I said quietly, and Master Higuchi looked up and nodded in satisfaction. Akashi, bear witness. I want you to keep an eye on them and make sure they carry this out properly and as gentlemen. Should they begin to actually quarrel, find a way to step in. Understood, Akashi bowed her head respectfully. My path to retreat had been cut off. No, dude, you can still say no. No matter what the pressure is, you can still say no. Master Higuchi seemed satisfied and sighed as he relaxed his posture. Now I have no regrets, he murmured. Are you sure? What about the 8 years you lost? He took out a cigar and lit it. Having missed my chance and ended up as successor to this mysterious tradition, I was already feeling drained by the responsibility when I noticed that Akashi was poking me. She was pointing at the box with the scrub brush in it. Master, here, it's a Kamonoko Tawashi. Akashi acquired it for me. When I handed it out to him, his eyes went wide and he moaned, but almost immediately he looked apologetic. Sorry for the trouble, he said. Once the duel is decided, I'm making myself scarce. What? Gasped Akashi. Are you really planning on taking a trip around the world? That sounds pretty reckless to me, I said, but he shook his head. But it's why I chose a new proxy. Where is he getting the money to take a trip around the world? Or is he doing his thing where he just assumes other people will pay everything for him, like thousands, tens of thousands of dollars? But it's why I chose a new proxy. I won't return to my room for a while. My good sir, would you kindly clean it with this brush? What? It's just one order after another, huh? Oh, don't be like that, he grinned. Hey, we need to start heading over to Kamo. What? He's gonna like make him clean that whole room with that little brush? See, he's so rude. Okay, we need to start heading over to Kamo Ohashi. My final battle with Jogasaki is upon us. Just as we were about to leave Shimogamo Yusu Iso, Hanuki came running over nearly out of breath. I'm so glad I made it in time, she said. I came straight from work. I was beginning to think you wouldn't show, Master Higuchi said. Oh, I'm going to see this through to the end. Not that this fight is going to be worth watching, but still. Then we all headed to the bridge. On the eastern end of Kamo Ohashi, Master Higuchi had rolled up the sleeves of his yukata and was holding out an old-fashioned wristwatch. The area was submerged in indigo twilight by this time. The Kamo River Delta was occupied by lively college kids. They must have been having a new student welcome party. Come to think of it, I'd spent 2 years completely removed from that scene. The river was running high from the rain that had lasted until just the other day, and it rushed noisily past, and the lights reflecting here and there. The surface of the water looked like a sheet of metallic paper being waved like a stage prop. Imadegawa Dori was busy, and the bridge was packed with brilliant head and tail lights. The orange lights affixed at intervals along the bridge's thick railing shone with a hazy, mystical air in the darkness. Kamo Ohashi felt larger than usual on this night. He's here, Master Higuchi said cheerfully, and strode towards the center of the bridge. Looking over, I saw Jogasaki approaching from the opposite end. Walking next to him was Ozu. We strode forward, glaring at each other, until we met right in the middle. Peering over the railing, I could see the surface of the Kamo River, which was sending up spray. It was flowing so hard. Glancing south, farther down the dark river's course, I saw the distant Shijo neighborhood's lights gleaming like jewels. Hey, if it isn't Akashi, Jogasaki said with a suspicious look. Hi, she said with a bow. You are one of Higuchi's friends? I joined as a disciple this fall. She's, well, a witness. She's here's my proxy, the one I introduced you to the other day. Master Higuchi pointed at me. By the way, could it be that your proxy is my disciple Ozu? Jogasaki put a smile on. You may have thought he was your disciple, but he was my spy. Tricked you, huh? You got me, the master crinkled up his eggplant face in laughter. Anyway, I suppose we should do the thing, the master said. With everyone gathered, a faint tension hung in the air. Bathed in our gazes, Jogasaki and Master Higuchi stared each other down. Jogasaki's chiseled features were pale in the light of the old lamp next to the footpath. He had the threatening aura of a Bakumatsu-era Kyoto assassin. The fact that the gloomy smirk on the face of Ozu next to him just accentuated his intensity could only mean they were a good match for each other. Intercepting them, Master Higuchi did everything he could to make his eggplant-shaped face stern. He stood firmly, haughtily, in his navy yukata and with his arms crossed, and the energy coming off his back was no ordinary determination. It was a real tiger versus dragon scenario. What kind of duel was about to unfold? We looked on with bated breath. Eventually, Hanuki stepped between Jogasaki and Higuchi and gestured with her hand as if it were a sword slicing through a string between them. All right, hop to it. It was a bit flavorless for a line being used to signal the start of a duel that would be the culmination of a 5-year battle. Jogasaki took an oblique stance. Ozu skittered to the rear. Akashi and I also moved back. Master Higuchi didn't move a muscle. Jogasaki thrust his left palm out, face up, and balled up his right fist on his hip. In response, Master Higuchi uncrossed his arms and performed hand seals as if he were reciting a Shingon mantra. Here I come, Higuchi, Jogasaki said in a low voice. Come then, said Master Higuchi. After one breathless instant, they clashed. Jink and Bond. Isn't that like, rock, paper, scissors? Jogasaki collapsed dramatically. Okay, that's it. It's over. Hanuki applauded. A beat later, Akashi began to clap. As for me, I just stood there dumbfounded. I won, so you'll deliver the first attack, said Master Higuchi. The duel on Kamo Ohashi was a game of rock, paper, scissors, yup, to determine which of the successors would strike first. Okay. Phew, that's a load off, said Master Higuchi, looking up at the indigo sky. He had crossed his arms again and resumed his leisurely air, and who would have expected anything else? Jogasaki stood up as if nothing had happened, seeming unconcerned. Master Higuchi took out a cigar and offered it to him. So, what are your plans now, Higuchi? We ended this on your request, after all, Jogasaki asked with a smoky exhale. I'm going to spread my wings. Hey, Hanuki, Higuchi's not making sense. Well, he is an idiot, Hanuki retorted. Then she said, let's go for drinks. Suddenly, Master Higuchi leaned into my ear with a grin. So I probably won't be meeting you again, my good sir. What? So I'm gifting you my globe. How can you gift me something that was mine to begin with? Was it? Was he really planning to disappear? As I was searching for the right words, a shriek shot up from the Kamo River Delta, north of the bridge. The party and kids had begun running around in a panic. When I pressed up against the railing to look, I saw something like a black fog eerily spread out from Aoi Park to the Kamo River Delta. Okay, this is when all the moths, attack everybody. Okay, yep, black, yep. Okay, yep, and Akashi, she freaks out. Oh, there was a swarm of moths. So we'd already read that part before. A news item appeared in the next day's Kyoto Shimbun, but no one knew exactly why the extraordinary number of moths had appeared. Okay, yeah, we read this one before too, and it's like he said that the moths, it seemed like it all came from the direction of his dorm room or apartment. Let's see if that's the true. Yeah, this is all the same that we read before. Yep, that's all the same. Yep, and he returned to his room. There's dead moths strewn everywhere. And his door was half open as he'd forgotten to lock it. So there were moth corpses all over. So, yep, that's the same. Pushing my way through the swarm of moths as they flapped into my face, sprinkling their scales around, sometimes trying to force their way into my mouth. Okay, this is the same too. I moved to Akashi and protected her like a total gentleman. I used to be a city slicker, so I had been above living among insects. Okay, this is the same too. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Okay, yeah, and then she starts screaming, are there any on me? Are there any on me? As the moths leave. Okay. Okay, Master Higuchi had vanished. It was as if he had flown away on the swarm of moths. What a brilliant exit, and entirely worthy of my master. But strangely, Ozu was missing. I figured Master Higuchi's mysterious disappearance was another of Ozu's underhanded plots. Higuchi and Ozu are gone, said Jogasaki. He sounded a little confused as he looked around the bridge. With his arms on the railing, bracing himself against the evening breeze, her arms, Hanuki shouted, Fine, just leave then. All right, I'm going to get sloppy tonight, Hanuki declared with her hands on her hips. Jogasaki, let's go drinking. Fine by me, said Jogasaki, looking slightly sad. But Higuchi didn't even say goodbye. He could have savored the moment a little. Come on, it'll be just the two of us. We haven't gone out for drinks together in who knows how long. Then she sidled up to me and leaned in. Take good care of Akashi. Oh, now she's being a bro. She wants She sees that he might like Akashi, so she's like, oh, let's set them up and so they can be alone. The two of them said that they were headed to Kiyamachi and they left. I walked over to Akashi. She was sitting in the pool of the cafe's light. Are you okay? I asked. Master Higuchi disappeared. Hearing that, she raised her pale face. Why don't we get some tea or something to calm down? I suggested. It's not as if I was thinking anything so rude as stooping to use her weakness against moths to my advantage. Seeing her so pale, I was offering out of concern. She nodded, and we went into the cafe that was right there. Okay, we have read this before, but I do see some little things that are different down here, so we'll keep reading. I wonder what happened to Master Higuchi. Ozu is gone too, I said, sipping on a coffee. Akashi cocked her head and then giggled. He disappeared like a mountain hermit, just flew away. She sipped her coffee. I'd expect nothing less. Where do you suppose they went? I cocked my head. I'm sure Ozu must have been planning it. As we were drinking our coffee, I remembered Colosio and told her about it. I told her how when she came to my room and said Colosio, that was my chance. If I had escaped at that point, I could have avoided inheriting the masochistic proxy war and entered into a new life. Unable to bear the grief of losing my rose-colored future, I heaved a sigh. Well, you can stop the masochistic proxy war. I failed to seize my chance, I said. I've done the same thing I always do. No, you didn't, Akashi shook her head. I'm sure you seized it. You just haven't realized it yet. As we were sitting there serenely drinking our coffee, we heard the siren of an ambulance approaching. Just as we thought it had passed, it stopped at the west end of Kamo Ohashi. Then came the noisy rescue. It was an impressive racket. Thank you for going out of your way to find the Kamo Noko Tawashi for me. When I bowed my head, a smile appeared on Akashi's face, which was still regaining its color. I guess our master is gone now anyhow, but if you're happy, I'm glad. It was awfully sudden, but at that moment I had feelings for Akashi one should never have for a fellow disciple. Speaking about those feelings at length goes against my principles, but suffice to say, after a fierce struggle to connect those feelings to action, I managed to spit out the following line. Akashi, wanna go get some Nako ramen? Oh! How my relationship with Akashi developed after that is a deviation from the point of this manuscript. Thus, I shall refrain from writing, okay, this is the same too, from writing the charming, bashfully giddy details, and we still want those bashfully giddy details. You probably don't want to pour your time down the drain reading such detestable drivel anyhow. No, I want to pour my time down the drain reading detestable dribble. There's nothing so worthless to speak of as a love mature. Now then, following those events, we never did find out where Higuchi went. Oh, he just disappeared. I didn't think he would leave so flashily and without so much of a goodbye. It was unclear whether he actually got to go on his trip around the world or not. A couple of weeks after he left, I reluctantly went to clean up room 210 with the assistance of Akashi and Hanuki. That scrub brush came in very handy, but let the record show it was a battle filled with hardship. Hanuki quickly designated herself out of commission. Akashi pretended to panic due to the utter filth, and tried to escape. And when Ozu came to visit on crutches, he vomited in the sink, making our job even harder. Great, so Higuchi just left a big mess for them to clean up. See, he's just so rude. So my storm of regret over becoming a disciple of Master Higuchi's charted its highest instantaneous wind speed immediately following his departure. But once life began without him, it sometimes felt like something was missing. When I looked out at the pins he had left in the globe in his room, charting the voyage of the Nautilus, even I was moved by emotion so strong I longed to embrace that globe and rub my cheek against it. But I was aware how repulsive that would be and thought better of it. Then I took the pins out and wondered where Higuchi was at that moment. Incidentally, the elusive Kamonoko Tawashi ended up at Akashi's house, where she makes very good use of it. I heard from Hanuki that Jogasaki intends to leave his program and get a job somewhere. Speaking of Jogasaki, I wonder how the silent beauty Ozu was planning to abduct Kaori is doing. I hope the couple are enjoying their life together. Hanuki herself still works at Kobuzuka Dental. About 2 months after Master Higuchi disappeared, I went to get my teeth looked at. Bet you're glad you came in, huh? Hanuki said. Apparently one of my wisdom teeth was rotting away. I had the honor of having her remove my plaque. To her credit, I must say that regardless of how much her face says ambitious Sengoku-era warlord, her hands are precise and trustworthy. She's a true professional. A dense man like me couldn't even try to guess at Hanuki's feelings following the disappearance of Master Higuchi, but she must be lonely. For that reason, whenever she asks me to go drinking, I make sure to extend the invite to Akashi and Ozu, and it almost always ends up a total mess. Ozu and I took over Master Higuchi's one concern, the masochistic proxy war. When I think that I must carry on this unsavory battle until I find a proxy, I can't help but feel depressed. In the duel on Kamo Ohashi, I was awarded the initiative. For my first attack, I took advantage of Ozu's hospitalization to paint his bicycle dark scorpion pink. It came out looking so shameless, you would never even think it was the same bike. Ozu hobbled into Shimogamo Yusu Iso with his crutches, huffy as a piping hot fish burger, so enraged his hair was standing on end. You are awful. You can't go turning things pink. Aren't you the one who dyed Master Higuchi's yukata pink? I asked. That was different. It was not. Let's have Akashi be the judge. I'm sure she'll understand. That was how things were going. It's not fair for you to assume that I'd naively approve of my past just because there have been some new developments in my student life since Master Higuchi left. I'm not the kind of man who would so readily affirm his past mistakes. Certainly I considered giving myself a big loving embrace, but regardless of how it would go with a black-haired maiden of a tender age, who would have any interest in hugging a mess of a 20-something guy? Driven by that unescapable anger, I firmly refused to give my past self salvation. I can't shake the feeling that I never should have signed up to be a disciple at the foot of that fateful clock tower. I think about what could have happened if I had chosen something else, if I had joined the film club, Ablutions, or chosen the mellow softball club, or if I had joined that underground organization, Lucky Cat Chinese Food. I would have had a very different couple of years. At least it's clear that I wouldn't be as warped as I am now. I might have attained that elusive treasure, a rose-colored campus life. No matter how I try to avert my eyes, I can't deny the fact that the past 2 years have been utterly wasted on a pile of mistakes. More than anything, the stain of having met Ozu is sure to linger for the rest of my days. In the immediate aftermath of Master Higuchi's disappearance, Ozu was staying in the hospital next to the school. I have to say, it felt pretty great to see him strapped into a crisp white bed. He had always had such a horrible complexion that he looked like a patient with an untreatable illness, but it was just a broken bone. I suppose it's lucky that he got away with just a broken bone. He grumbled that he wasn't able to perpetrate any of the misdeeds he preferred over 3 square meals a day, but I just thought, that's what you get. When his grumbles got to be too much, I crammed the castella I brought him into his mouth to shut him up. How did he get a broken bone? We have to go back to the night that swarm of moths flew by Kamo Ohashi. Pushing my way through the swarm of moths as they flapped into my face, sprinkling their scales around, sometimes trying to force their way into my mouth, I moved to Akashi and protected her like a total gentleman. Meanwhile, Ozu, his creepy grin unwavering even as every nook and cranny of his body was fondled by moths, waited for things to calm down. His only concern was that his hair was getting messed up. Just then, what he saw through the slits of his barely open eyes was Master Higuchi clambering up onto the bridge's railing. Beyond the veil of powdery scales in the air, our master spread his arms atop the railing as if he was going to slip into the swarm of moths and depart the old capital. Ozu yelled, "Master!" in spite of himself. He choked when several moths flew into his mouth, but he still got a hold of the railing and desperately grabbed our master's yukata. Suddenly, Master Higuchi's body rose into the air, and Ozu felt his body float along. Master Higuchi stared down at him. Though he was cocooned in the sound of flapping moth wings, Ozu swears he heard our master say, "You're quite the promising disciple, Ozu." But this was Ozu himself relaying the story, so it can't be trusted. With that parting comment, Master Higuchi escaped Ozu's attempts to stop him. Ozu then lost his balance on the railing and fell into the Kamo River. He broke his leg and was stuck under the bridge like a piece of garbage, unable to move until a member of the cheer squad partying on the Delta found him. The ambulances stopped by the west side of Kamo Ohashi, while Akashi and I were leisurely sipping our coffee, had been on its way to pick up Ozu. Oh. That explains Ozu's broken bone, but it doesn't hold much water when it comes to Master Higuchi's disappearance. I suspected there was something Ozu wasn't telling us. You're saying our master took off on the wings of moths from his world tour? For his world tour? I'm sure that's what happened. It must be, Ozu said. I can't trust anything you say. Have I ever told a lie? How am I supposed to believe you put yourself in physical danger in order to stop him? I did, though. Our master's important to me, he snapped back. If he's really so important to you, then why did you play double agent with Jogasaki? What the hell was that about, I asked. Ozu put on his usual yokai grin and laughed his head off. It's my love language. Gross, you can spare me, I replied. Okay, here's part 3. Tatami and the Sweet Life. So I'm going to take a little break and I'll be back to read part 3. Okay, I took a little break, but let's get back to part 3. Tatami and the Sweet Life. Okay, so this is basically the same thing again. Let's just say I accomplished absolutely nothing during the 2 years leading up to the spring of my junior year. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Prince Genji. You're still young, some will say. Okay, can't look away, but it's hard to watch. Okay, I think this is different. After a nigh fruitless 2 years, I became a junior. I'm going to attempt to write about some King Lear level drama that occurred that spring between me and 3 women, but this story is neither a tragedy nor a comedy. If someone sheds tears reading this, it must be that either their sensibilities are overly keen or they got curry powder on their contacts. And if someone laughs from the pit of their stomach, I will hate that person from the pit of my stomach, as if they'd insulted my parents and chased them to the ends of the earth to pour hot water over them and wait 3 minutes. Gee, kind of like their cup noodles. I'm sure some extremely admirable person has said that if you have the will to learn from even the most trivial matter, there is a way. Naturally, those words apply to this series of events as well. I, for one, learned all sorts of things. I learned so many things I can't possibly list them all. If I had to pick 2, I'd say, don't hand over the reins to Johnny so easily, and don't stand on the Kamo Ohashi railing. As for the rest, please glean them from the text as you read. On a quiet May night, the witching hour, my base of operations was a room at Shimogamo Yusuiso in Shimogamo Izumi Kawacho. From what I had heard, it had been standing there since being rebuilt. Okay, this is about the building. It looks abandoned. We've read all that. Yeah, it seems to it could collapse at any moment. Important cultural property level. Okay, sitting upright in my 4.5 mat tatami room, number 110, I scowled up at the light. It was dim and flickering now and then. I'd been thinking I needed to change the bulb, but that was a pain in the ass, so I hadn't yet. Just as I was carefully making a selection from my library of obscenities, my best friend, whom one can't help but hate, Ozu, came over and drummed on the door, ruining this hour of peace and tranquility I love. I pretended not to be home and tried to lose myself in a book, but Ozu emitted a cry like a small animal being tortured and urged me to open the door. Acting without thinking about anyone else was his specialty. When I opened the door, he put on his Ryuhyun smirk and said, "Excuse me." Then he called back into the darkness of the hallway. "Okay, Kaori, apologies for the squalid accommodations." It's Kaori. Loitering around the Shimogamo Shrine neighborhood in the dead of night in the company of a woman and absorbing oneself in profligate diversions is inexcusable. Still, if there was a woman present, I at least had the decency to clean up my library of obscenities. With a sidelong glance, as I hastily stowed the books back in their places, Ozu came in with a petite woman riding piggyback. Her silky flowing hair was beautiful, and this scene of such a sweet lady entrusting herself to a yokai like Ozu had the aura of an indefensible crime. "What in the... Is she drunk?" I asked, worried. "Huh? This isn't a person," Ozu commented bizarrely. He sat the woman down, leaning her against the bookcase. Apparently she was heavy. Sweat had beaded on his forehead. When he fixed her hair, I got a good look at her features. She had an adorable face. Her skin was completely human in hue, and when I gently touched it, there was a springy firmness. She had well-kept hair and was immaculately dressed. She looked like a lady of noble birth, except she didn't move at all. It was as if she had been frozen the instant she cast her eyes into the distance. "This is Kaori," Ozu introduced her. "What is it?" "A love doll. I can't keep it in my room, so I wanted you to hold on to it for me. You've got some nerve barging in here in the middle of the night with this bullshit." There. It's only a week." "A week? I wouldn't do you wrong." "Man, somebody's gonna find it, and then they'll think the main character's a creep." That Ryuhyun smirk. "It's like a pretty flower suddenly bloomed out of your filthy tatami mats," he said. "She'll brighten the place up a bit." Ozu was in the same year as me. Despite being registered he's in the Department of Electrical Engineering. He doesn't really seem to like electrical engineering. He hates vegetables, which makes him look strange. So we have already read this. Okay. So there was not a single praiseworthy bone in his body. If only I had never met him, my soul would surely be less tainted. Okay, we did read that before. On that note, we must say that joining the Mellow Softball Club in the spring of my freshman year was my first big mistake. At the time, I was a fresh as a daisy man. Okay. Yeah, this is where he's getting flyers, the Ablutions Film Club, Disciples Wanted Notice, Mellow Softball Club. All right, so we're on number 3 of 4. Lucky Cat Chinese food. So we've read all that. Okay, here's like where it divulges. Okay. Okay, after my classes were over, I headed to the clock tower. All kinds of clubs were meeting there to take new students to orientations. The area around the clock was bustling with freshmen, their cheeks flushed with hope, and welcoming committee members ready to prey on them. It seemed to me that there were innumerable entryways leading to that elusive prize, a rose-colored campus life, and I walked among them half in a daze. First, I found several students waiting with a sign for the film club Ablutions. They were holding a screening to welcome new students and offered to show me the way. For whatever reason, I couldn't make up my mind to approach them, and I ended up going around to the other side of the clock tower. Just then, I caught sight of a student holding a placard that said Mellow. Mellow was a club that borrowed a corner of the school grounds on the weekends to play softball. People who wanted to show up to practice could if they felt like it, but aside from the occasional games, you could use your time as you pleased. I was charmed by the carefree name and lax operating policies, and I had heard there were plenty of girls, too. It wasn't like I played sports in high school, but I hadn't been in any other clubs either. Really, I did my best to lie low and not participate in anything at all. I spent all my time sitting around with equally inactive men. I thought, well, it wouldn't be so bad to get some exercise. A real sports team would have been too much for me, but this softball club was just for fun. The point was to make friends, so I wouldn't have to worry about chasing that white ball around night after night after day to qualify for the All Japan's championship. Farewell, melancholy high school days. There's no downside to making 100 friends while working up an invigorating sweat. Following a diligent training period, I would surely gain enough social skills to be able to play conversational catch with beautiful women just as easily as tossing a softball back and forth. This was an ability I most definitely wanted to acquire before going out into the world. Okay, yeah, that's a positive attitude, and actually a good idea. Join a casual club, meet some people, learn how to increase your social skills. That's good. My objective was to gain skills, not associate with women, but if women came along as the result of my gaining those skills, I had no intention of rejecting them. Don't worry, relax, come chill with me. The very thought had me trembling in excitement. It bears repeating, I was an incorrigible idiot. Thus, having joined Mello, I became painfully aware of how difficult it is to smile and talk to people and associate in a pleasant way. The atmosphere was laughably relaxed beyond anything I could have imagined, and I couldn't for the life of me get used to it. It was unenduringly embarrassing. Far from mastering flexible social skills, I couldn't even enter the circle of conversation. By the time I realized I would have to study the art of entering a conversation elsewhere, it was too late, and I had failed to fit in. Aw, how easily my dreams were shattered. But when I was at my wit's end, there was one man in the club from whom I sensed some humanity. That man was Ozu. Ozu said the manual labor had left him hungry. I was seized by an unstoppable desire for Neko ramen, so we left Shimogamo Yusu Iso and headed for the noodle stall under the cover of night. Neko ramen is a ramen stand rumored to make its soup from cats. Regardless of whether that's true or not, the flavor is unparalleled. As Ozu slurped from his steaming bowl of noodles, he explained that he had stolen the doll Kaori from someone's lodgings on his master's orders. I'm pretty sure that's a crime, I said. Is it? Ozu cocked his head. It sure as fuck is, and I'm not about to be made an accessory. But this guy and my master have been friends for 5 years. I think he'll understand. Besides, he continued with an indefensibly lewd smirk, you must want to see what it's like to live with her, I can tell. You bastard. Why are you looking at me like that? Hey, don't hang all over me, I said. But I'm lonely, and the evening breeze is so cold. You're always lonely. Eek. Eventually, imitating senseless lovers' talk to kill time at the ramen stall wore thin as well, and somehow I had the feeling we'd had a similar exchange before, which pissed me off. Hey, didn't we have this conversation before? I asked. I think not. We're not that dumb. You're just having deja vu is all. As we continued our bullshit, wavering between ecstasy and anxiety over the unique taste of the ramen, a customer came in and stood next to us. I glanced over and noted how strange he was. Okay, so here's the god. He's wearing his yukata, has a Tengu spirit. Okay. Yep, and he'd seen him from behind, doing all sorts of stuff, and his hair looked crazy. He had an eggplant-shaped head. His age is unclear. Oh, you came too, master? Ozu looked up as he slurped his ramen. Yes, I was feeling a little peckish. The man sat down and ordered a bowl of noodles. Apparently, this eccentric character was Ozu's master. Ozu paid for his meal, a rare act for his parsimonious fellow. I'm positive that we've dealt a major blow to Jogasaki. The idea that Kaori would be gone when he got back from the cafe can't possibly have crossed his mind, Ozu declared enthusiastically, but his master frowned as he lit a cigar. Akashi came by earlier and said that abducting Kaori was going too far. Aw, come on, why would she think that? She insists that trampling someone's loving relationship like this isn't funny. Even if their partner is a doll, she's prepared to expel herself. Ozu's master scratched his sparsely stubbled chin. For someone who's usually hard as rocks, she sure chose a weird case to show compassion. But master, this is when you need to be master-like and tell her what's what. You shouldn't hold back just because she's a girl. Telling people what's what isn't really my style. Well, I already went to Jogasaki's place and took it. I'm not about to go return it at any point. So, where is Kaori anyhow? In his room, Ozu pointed at me. I silently bowed my head. The Yucatan man looked at me with an expression that said, "Oh," and asked, "Aren't you staying at Shimogamo Yusu Iso?" "I am." Parting our heist. After that, we went back to Shimogamo Yusu Iso, and Ozu drove off in the car he had used to bring the doll over. Ozu's master bowed to me silently and went up to the second floor. When I went back to my place, the big doll was leaning against the bookcase with dreamy eyes. On the way back, Ozu and his master had muttered to each other and apparently reached the conclusion that since she was here now, we just had to wait and see. I had no say, so how did it make any sense for her to be kept in my 4.5 mat tatami room? Having convinced his master to go along with his plan, Ozu wore a triumphant smirk. Meanwhile, his master seemed to think it was only natural for me to take care of the doll. It was as if I'd been duped by a tanuki and kitsune trickster tag team. So I think a tanuki, they're the they're the raccoon spirits, and the kitsune is the fox spirit, I think. Ever since quitting Mello, Ozu and I had continued to hang out together. He may have left one club, but he seemed to have plenty of other things to do. He belonged to a secret organization. He was a respected figure in his film club. He led a busy life. And among his many habits, visiting this person on the second floor of Shimogamo Yusu Iso was an important one. He called that person Master, and had been coming to Shimogamo Yusu Iso since freshman year. So the reason I had such a hard time breaking our fatal bond was not only because we fled the same club in the same way, but also because he frequented my lodgings. Whenever I asked him who this master was, he would only smirk this obscene smirk. I figured they must just talk smut. I sat down on the tatami and gazed at my unexpected new roommate, Kaori. The whole thing really pissed me off, but I was forced to admit that she was a pretty charming doll. "Kaori, I know my room's a dump, but well, make yourself at home." I said it just to see, but felt afterward like talking to her was idiotic, even for me, so I laid out my futon and went to bed. You could say it was when the immobile beauty Kaori intruded on my 4.5 mat tatami mats that things started to go haywire. My quiet life was assailed in the span of just a few days by a torrent of unbelievable turns, and after being buffeted on that raging river like a bamboo leaf boat, I was hurled into an entirely different direction without even grasping what was happening. It was all Ozu's fault. The next day, when I opened my eyes a bit, I was astonished to see an immaculate woman leaning against the bookcase. A woman in my room? As unprecedented, unexpected affair. Had I played fiery games of passion with some sheltered maiden and let her stay over, and had said maiden then woken up before me, horrified at her mistakes of the previous night, leaned against the bookcase, unable to move another muscle? His imagination's kind of running wild. Responsibility, discussion, marriage, dropping out of college, poverty, divorce, extreme poverty, a solitary death. The series of events flickered across the back of my mind like shadows cast by a revolving lantern. This didn't strike me as a situation I could handle, and I trembled in my futon like a newborn deer until I eventually remembered what had happened the night before and that she was a doll. I was so startled, my eyes fully opened. Kaori hadn't moved at all during the night. I said good morning to her, made coffee, and fried up a leftover third of a fish burger for breakfast. When I was eating, I talked to Kaori without really knowing why. "But wow, Kaori, Guess this is a disaster for the both of us. It must be awful to be stuck in this tiny room, stewed in manly essence. Ozu is such a jerk. He's never been someone you could call thoughtful or considerate. He fuels himself on other people's misfortunes. Maybe he didn't get enough love from his parents as a kid. You really don't talk much, huh? What has you so mopey on such a nice morning? Come on, you can tell me. It goes without saying, but she remained silent. I finished my fish burger and drank my coffee. I had no business chatting with a doll out of boredom on the morning of my day off. There was real life to attend to. The intermittent rain from the past few days had cleared up, and I was awake early, so I thought I'd head out to the neighborhood laundromat. It was just a few minutes' walk from Shimogamo Yusuiso. I tossed my laundry into the machine and ran it before going out to buy a can of coffee. When I got back, there was still no one around, and the only laundry machine working was the one on the far left that I always used. I drank my coffee and smoked a cigarette in the fine weather. When the machine stopped and I opened the lid, I was dumbstruck. There was no sign of my favorite underwear. Inside the machine sat a spongy little bear plushie. I glared at the adorable thing for a few moments. This was too bizarre. If a woman's underwear gets stolen from a laundromat, that I can at least understand. But what's so interesting about stealing gray briefs that had spent the past 2 years loyally serving a dude like me? Wasn't that just asking for needless sorrow? And the fact that the criminal left behind a cute stuffed animal only raised more questions. What were they trying to impart to me with this bear? Was it affection? But I have no interest in the affections of a criminal who would make off with my underwear. I prefer the affections of a black-haired maiden who is soft, delicate, and sensitive, with a head full of beautiful dream-like things. I opened the other laundry machines and checked the dryers too, but there was no sign of my underwear. I stomped my feet. It would have been absurd to report this to the police. I didn't want them to uncover the identity of a criminal this weird. I went home carrying the spongy bear, because it would have been too infuriating to go home empty-handed. Flames of rage blazed up inside me, but there was nothing I could do. I needed the bear to work off some anger. After the theft at the laundromat, I returned to my room thoroughly offended and huffy as a piping hot fish burger. The 4.5 mat tatami room would get muggy in the western sun, but it was still morning, so it was cool. Kaori awaited my return next to the bookcase. I had been trembling with anger, but gazing at her composed profile seemed to calm me down. Ozu had stolen her from someone, and I was sure that unfortunate individual was searching high and low for her with bloodshot eyes. Given how neat and clean she was, I would imagine she was adored in the manner of all pleasant things, butterflies, flowers. But just haughtily sitting there, she had no humanity about her. I decided to lay the copy of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea I bought at the Shimogamo used book fair open in her lap. That way, she'd give the impression of an intelligent black-haired maiden spurring her dreams on in a corner of my room with a nautical adventure novel. It really brought her personality out. There was no one in the room, and no one would ever want to enter it. It was just me and her. Even if I perpetrated a bit of mischief, there was no one around to condemn me, but I exercised self-control I could commend myself for, and treated her with the utmost respect. In the first place, Ozu had entrusted her to me. My pride wouldn't allow me to try any funny stuff and suffer his complaints. To soothe my frayed nerves following the theft of my underwear, I sat at my desk and decided to read the letter that had arrived the other day. It was from a woman. It may alarm you to hear this, wise readers, but I was engaged in written correspondence. She lived alone in Jodoji, and her name was Keiko Higuchi. She was a young lady who did administrative work for an English school in Shijo Kawaramachi. Her hobbies were reading and gardening. She wrote happily about the flowers she was growing on her balcony. Her handwriting was beautiful, and her prose was also quite beautiful. She was flawless, but I had never met her. It was very old-fashioned of me, but I love writing letters. and I've always longed for a pen pal. Even better, if said pal is a woman in the prime of her youth. Why would I write to any intelligent life form who isn't a woman in the prime of youth? My pure, single-minded appreciation for letter writing is such that I'm firm on this stance. The crucial points here are that the letters must be handwritten and that under no circumstances, not even if hell's lid blows off or the world is about to end, do you meet your correspondent. The latter rule, especially, must be followed. If you know your correspondent is a woman in the prime of youth, it's surely natural for the desire to meet her to bubble up within a man. But this is a moment to exercise self-restraint. If you're not careful, the refined relationship you've cultivated will go poof. My dream was to someday receive a chance out of the blue and embark on a refined correspondence. I had the itch, but embarking on a correspondence with a woman in the prime of youth whom you've never met is harder than you might think. Sending letters to random addresses, praying that a woman in the prime of youth lives there is boorish, if not perverted. But consulting an organization like the Kyoto chapter of the Society for Letter Writing Enthusiasts in Japan, just because I feel like writing letters to someone, goes against my aesthetic. When I divulged these hidden feelings to Ozu, he mercilessly teased me for being a creep. Eyes upturned in an indefensibly lewd expression, he said, I bet you get off on writing dirty stuff to women you've never met. Whatever are we going to do with your uncontrollable eroticism, you prompt yet porn-penning bastard? I would never commit such an unpardonable offense. Sure, but I know the truth, that you're 50% arrows. Shut up. Despite all of that, it was Ozu who presented me with the ideal correspondence opportunity. In the fall of our sophomore year, Ozu, who was generally only interested in erotic prose, read a normal novel, or so he claimed, which he then gave to me. He said he had bought it on a whim from the 100-yen bin at a used bookstore on Imadegawa Dori. And then he grumbled, thinking only of his own convenience, that he had finished it and it was dirty, so he didn't need it anymore. The novel, which went on and on, portraying the hardships of an old-fashioned student who had no luck with girls, was far from elegant and not very good, but my eyes were riveted to the final page. A name and address were printed there in beautiful handwriting. Normally, you would erase this sort of thing before you sold the book to a used bookstore, or the bookstore would do it on their end to avoid any trouble, but this case seemed to have slipped through. I immediately thought, this is a perfect opportunity. Is this what they call divine providence? Isn't this a 1 in a million chance to embark on correspondence with a new acquaintance of the female persuasion? If you consider the situation more rationally, it's clear there was not enough information to determine her youthfulness, and if I was going to go so far as to judge her a woman in the prime of youth who loved reading, was a bit shy, and didn't realize how beautiful she was, well, no wonder I'd get called a creep. But I'm not averse to bearing the stigma of creep when the situation calls for it. I hurried over to the Demachi shopping street and purchased stationery both beautiful and, to counteract the perversion of my endeavor, overflowing with sincerity. I was sending a letter out of nowhere, so I had enough good sense to make the content benign. If I sent a letter dripping with who knows what juices, she would have every right to report it to the police. Yeah, that's pretty gross. I started off by apologizing politely for writing out of the blue. Then I smoothly and without any sarcasm added that I was a student engaged in serious academics, honestly stated that I had always wanted to exchange letters with someone, gave my neither complimentary nor disparaging impressions of the book, and specifically avoided saying anything about hoping for a reply. Writing on and on for too long would reek of perversion, so I revised and revised my revisions until it all fit on a page and a half of stationery. Rereading the letter after I finished writing, I found it fragrant with sincerity and unblemished by the slightest hint of wickedness. Enchanting, if I did say so myself. Letters really are meant to be written from the heart, I thought. Okay. Okay. In this world of corrupt public morals, replying to a letter from a stranger requires considerable determination, especially for a sheltered maiden adored in the manner of all pleasant things, butterflies, flowers. I had resolved that I wouldn't be hurt even if I didn't get a letter in return, but one came, so I was ecstatic. That was the unbelievably simple beginning of my 6 months' correspondence, which would end in the worst way imaginable that May. Oh no, what happened? Greetings. It feels like Aoi Matsuri was only yesterday and it's already getting muggy out. It's as if we skipped the rainy season and jumped straight to summer. I don't like the heat, so I hope we get some rain soon. Lots of people hate the rainy season because it's so damp and gloomy, but I find days of continuous drizzle relaxing. There are a lot of hydrangeas at my grandparents' house, and when I was a kid, I always loved watching them bloom from the porch through the veil of rain. I've been reading Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ever since you recommended it, and I've just reached part 3. I always thought it was a story for kids, but it's actually pretty deep, huh? I like Captain Nemo's air of mystery, but I think my favorite character is the harpooner Ned Land. I feel bad for him being cooped up in the submarine with no way to use his skills. The professor and Conseil are also trapped, but they seem to be sort of having fun. Ned is the only one who's irritated, so that must be why I find myself sympathizing with him. Or maybe I just love to eat as much as he does. If I were going to recommend something, I suppose it would be Stevenson's Treasure Island. Maybe you've already read it. I did when I was little. Work is the same as always, no major incidents. A teacher is leaving after 3 years with us, so we held a going away party for him the other day at the Irish pub on Oike Dory. I don't drink, but I enjoy the Irish food. The fried fish was very tasty. The man who is leaving is from San Francisco, and he said we should meet up if I ever find myself there. He's in his mid-30s, but I guess he's going back to school. I'd like to study abroad, but I can barely keep up with daily life, so I doubt I'll be able to. I hope I don't come across as a busybody, but I think it's wonderful that you can explore so many different subjects while you're a university student. I'm sure you'll be able to take advantage of the opportunities you've been given and improve yourself immensely. Since you are a junior, I bet you have a lot on your plate this spring, but please believe in yourself and work hard. That said, your health is most important, so make sure you don't overdo it. You wrote that you like fish burgers, but please don't eat only fish burgers. Balance out your diet and take care of yourself. Well, I think that's about it for this letter. I'll be waiting for your reply. Sincerely, Keiko Higuchi. By afternoon, my 4.5 mat tatami room was a sauna. When I get hot, I get irritated, and the anger I felt toward the underwear thief in the laundromat surged up again. Needing the bear I'd gotten in exchange for my briefs, I gazed at Kaori silently reading in the corner. To clear my head, I applied myself to my studies. But as I faced my textbooks, it started to feel like it was too little, too late to make up for the 2 years I had wasted. Being that pitiful is against my aesthetic, so I gracefully gave up on studying. I have pretty high confidence when it comes to this sort of grace. In other words, I'm a gentleman. And so I had no choice but to rely on Ozu for the paper I had to turn in. Okay, he's still doing this. The printing office. He gets like pretty much addicted and reliant on it. Yep, and this is one of the reasons I couldn't break my fatal bond. Okay, is this new? Okay, let's read it. It was only the end of May, but it was already muggy enough to be summer. I had my window open as far as I could without risking someone being offended by my porn collection. Okay, we have read this before, but the air wasn't moving. Yeah, he talks about his underwear here, down here, so let's keep reading. The various secret ingredients contained in the stagnant air was slowly maturing like the amber whiskey at the Yamazaki distillery. Anyone who entered my 4.5 mat tatami room would become altogether intoxicated. Still, when I opened the door to the hallway, the cat that prowled around Yusuiso came right in and meowed at me, the cute little bugger. It was so cute I wanted to eat it up, and I thought I just might, but of course I couldn't do something so barbaric. A man must be a gentleman, even when wearing nothing but his underwear. Oh, okay, yeah, we've read all of this before. Okay, after cleaning the mucus out of the cat's eyes, he shoved it back in the hall. Okay, is this new? Well, let's read it. Eventually, I flopped down and at some point fell deep asleep. I had woken up early, so I guess I didn't get enough rest. When I awoke with a start, the sun was already slanting quite a lot, and my day off was about to end as a total waste. The only thing significant enough to save this day from being a complete wash was English conversation school, and it was almost time for it. I got ready to go. After having such a miserable time as a member of Mellow, I found myself unable to trust clubs any longer. As a result, I had more time than I knew what to do with. Inspired by Keiko Higuchi revealing that she worked at an English school, I had been taking lessons at a school in Kawaramachi Sanjo since the previous fall. Incidentally, there was no woman by the name of Higuchi working at the school I attended. All right, Kaori, I'm counting on you to hold the fort down, I said as I was leaving, but she was completely absorbed in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and didn't look up. The profile of a woman absorbed in a book is a truly beautiful sight. I sped away from Shimogamo Yusuiso on my bicycle. The area already had the air of evening about it, and the sky covered with soft clouds glowed pink. A chilly breeze was blowing. I passed by Shimogamo Shrine, crossed Mikage Dori, and exited the shrine's approach road. Where I came out was between two bridges, Kawaibashi and Demachibashi, right where the Kamo River from the west and the Takano from the east merge into one Kamo River. This area was commonly known as the Kamo River Delta. At this time of year, it was often crowded with college kids holding parties to welcome new students. I remembered being a freshman and attending a barbecue here with those weird softball people, but my inability to join the conversation meant I was left with only sad memories of throwing stones into the river. Oh, he's shy. As I rode along the cool embankment between the west end of Demachibashi and the west end of Kamo Ohashi, I was seized by some masochistic urge and was staring at the friendly gatherings of students enjoying themselves when I noticed Ozu among a group of chatting kids on the river bend. There was no mistaking that odd character. I stopped my bike in spite of myself. Ozu was surrounded by a group of what appeared to be new students, and he seemed totally comfortable. I suppose he was living it up with his bosom buddies from this club, with zero regard for my barren day. Well, Ozu's having fun. Let him have fun. It's not about you, dude. With the Kamo River between us, it felt like the flow separated light and darkness, and I was infuriated. What was the world coming to if a bunch of pure-hearted youngsters would warmly cluster around a creepy yokai like him? Man, the main character's jealous. He's a hater. He is definitely a hater. Their souls were bound to be polluted, and I had no way of stopping it. For a while, I glared angrily at Ozu from the opposite shore, but that accomplished nothing besides making me hungry. I switched gears and got back on my bicycle. After my English lesson, I walked around the dark streets. To fill my stomach, I stopped by Nagahama Ramen and Sanjo Kiyamachi to slurp a bowl and then strolled through the neighborhood. As I walked, I thought about Ozu, and my full stomach started to feel a bit sick as my mood fell into it. These 2 years he had sat complacently in the center of my infinitely small social circle, always finding some way to ruin the tranquility of my 4.5 mat tatami room, like the way he barged in during the middle of the night to dump Kaori on me and blew out of there like the wind. Yeah, that was pretty crappy. He was so selfish. Yeah, that was a pretty selfish thing to do. But fundamental problem was that Ozu was polluting my once innocent soul. Mingle with darkness and you turn to the dark side. While I associated with Ozu and his warped character, was my own character not being adversely affected right under my nose? See, the main character, he thinks himself like a much better person than he actually is. But I think a lot of people are like that, where, you know, they want to think of themselves as a good person, so they kind of like pick and choose, like the bad things they do, they like rationalize it away, going, oh well, I did that not because I'm pure evil, or I'm just like plotting evilly in my room, laughing evilly to myself, like ha, but you know, I have this and this and this reason. But like purely evil people, they also have this and this and this reason, and they have like so-called logical reasons for doing what they do. So it's kind of funny how delusional and like how non-self-reflective the main character is, but it's also very human, you know? Smoldering with irritation towards Ozu, I strolled along the Takase River. Before long, I came to a halt. Among the bars and sex shops crouched a dark house. Under its eaves, an old woman sat. Okay, here's the fortune teller. Blah, blah, blah. She looked weird. And let's see if she's going to tell him Colosio. Okay. Yep, and she basically gives him basic generic advice. Oh, it's not too late to change your destiny and whatever. Okay. Okay, and then she like butters him up and like compliments him, and he's like, oh, she's right. Oh, her compliments show that she's so trustworthy and she's telling the truth. Yep, and she does the Colosio thing. And don't miss your chance. Okay. Oh, and there's Hanuki, the dental hygienist. Okay, Hanuki went to the same English school as me. Okay, so she was going to learn English. I had known her for about 6 months, since I had signed up the previous fall, but we were just classmates, nothing more. I had made repeated attempts to steal her superior techniques, but they all ended in failure. Hanuki spoke extremely fluid, extremely messy English. The fragments of what seemed to be English that she hurled forth one after another danced in the air, and despite their broken grammar, joined together in a way that transcended the rules to somehow make sense in the mind of the listener. It was profoundly mysterious. Meanwhile, while I revised my revisions in my head, the conversation would move on, and by the time I had confidently completed some lines I could pronounce with my dignity intact, it was too late. Yeah, I relate to that, trying to speak in another language. This was the pattern I tirelessly repeated. Rather than speaking grammatically bankrupt English, I would choose the glory of silence. I am a man who looks before he leaps. Okay, this might be kind of like a metaphor for how he goes about life. He does have this very black and white like outlook on life and himself. You know, his past was all good. When he was a kid, everything was so perfect and good. And I think he wants that perfection back. So if things can't be perfect, he just spirals and is like, oh, I'm in like the worst, time of my life. Like when he was in the Ablutions Club, things really didn't seem that bad. He might be a bit shy and awkward, but it's not like everybody hated him. And if he just behaved a little more and stopped making such weird, semi-creepy films, he would have, gotten more friends and got along with people more. But I think his awkwardness and his like social anxiety just makes him freak out, freeze, and then just blurt out weird stuff. So that makes him feel even worse. But yeah, and then the discipleship universe, I think that one wasn't that great because he couldn't say no to anyone. But if he just said no to the Master Higuchi's weird, oh, you're going to be my proxy, if he just said no, all of his problems would have gone away. So he's just kind of floating through life, going wherever the breeze goes, not really carving his own destiny. And you don't have to put like a whole bunch of effort into carving your destiny. You just like make little adjustments, like No, Higuchi, I will not be your proxy. So instead of his life going this way, it just kind of gently nudges that way. But this is a good lesson to have when, like, you're in high school or you're in college, when you are starting to develop your boundaries, and realizing you can say no to things, and realizing you do now have full responsibility in your life, and you can't just accept everything and everyone who just stumbles into your life. You have to take control of your own actions and your own decisions. So hopefully by the end of this, you will learn that. Maybe he'll have insight into all 4 alternate realities, and he'll realize, oh, I can't keep blaming other people or clubs for my problems. Obviously, I have deep-seated problems that emerge no matter what club I join. So this is part of me, and I need to acknowledge and work on that and work with it. So I'm still hopeful for the main character. From what I had gleaned in her self-introduction at school, I knew she worked at a dental office. In our English class, we all spoke on topics of our choice, and she almost always talked about teeth. Her dentistry vocabulary had grown by leaps and bounds, even just during the 6 months since we'd met. And her classmates' knowledge of dentistry had also grown by leaps and bounds, a very good thing. My speeches were always about Ozu's evil deeds, because Ozu occupied the core of my social life. Honestly, I hesitated to publicize his unproductive activities in an international context, but when I referred to one of them out of necessity one day, my classmates applauded for some reason, and I ended up giving regular Ozu news reports. I guess it was funny because it was all happening to someone else. After a few rounds of these anecdotes, Hanuki approached me one day after class. I was surprised to learn that she was acquainted with Ozu. He was a patient at Kobuzuka Dental, where she worked. Not to mention that the master Ozu was always visiting also happened to be an old friend of hers. She said, "Small world, huh?" We got to talking about Ozu's unscrupulous nature and hit it off right away. After I ran into Hanuki out by the fortune teller, the 2 of us decided to get a drink at an Ikakawa together. Hanuki had come to Kiwamachi because she had made plans with someone after English class, but she was suddenly filled with loathing for him, and not only that, but she wanted a drink, and she didn't want to see him, and actually she wanted to drink like there was no tomorrow. These were the troubles she was carrying when she found me wondering what to do with my life. Perfect timing, she sang, in a chaotic melody as she briskly led me off on a voyage into the night. Since it was the weekend that Izakawa was hopping, there were also a lot of college kids around, but especially during the new student welcome party season. Here and there I saw people who looked so young they had probably been high schoolers until just the other day. We toasted to the dark future spreading out before Ozu. As long as we were bad-mouthing him, we could keep the conversation going, so that was handy. There are infinite types of slander in this world. He's made my life hell, I said. I bet. That's his hobby. More like his purpose in life. He's always interfering in other people's business for no good reason. And then he turns around and keeps his own secret. Seriously, I don't even know where he lives. He won't tell me no matter how many times I ask. Yet he's shown up at my place a zillion times. Oh, I've been to his place, she said. Really? It's over in the Jodoji area, a little ways off Shirakawa-dori. He lives in a studio in a fancy building that looks like candy. Ozu gets loads of money from his parents. They have my pity. Wow, and I thought he couldn't piss me off anymore. But you're his best friend, aren't you? She said, and then cackled. He talks about you all the time. Aw, is it good things? Because he's always like bad-mouthing Ozu. Even though Ozu, yeah, he is pretty mischievous. What does he say about me, I asked, envisioning Ozu grinning ominously in the gloom. It was possible he was feeding Hanuki outrageous lies, in which case I would need to firmly deny them. All sorts of things, like how you escaped a weird club together. Oh, that was true. The club I strayed into, so he had kind of expected Ozu to be gossiping about him as much as he gossips about Ozu. The club I had strayed into, Mellow, was, as its name implied, as mellow as a cloud hanging in a sky veiled with spring mist. There was no hierarchy among members. Students in all years treated each other with mutual respect. No senior or junior members, no hatred or sadness. Everyone tossed love back and forth the same way they tossed the white ball. They all wanted to have a fun time and help each other out. Yes, join for a week and you'll want to flip a table. As we played catch on the school grounds on the weekends, grabbed food, and generally hung around each other, May passed by, June passed by, July passed by. Would these tepid interactions allow me to master basic social skills? No, my patience was on its last legs. I just couldn't get used to the other members. They were always smiling and speaking in gentle tones, never arguing or talking smut. Everyone and their brother made the same impression, so I couldn't tell them apart or match any names with faces. Every time I said something, everyone would fall silent with their kind smiles still plastered on their faces. So they're kind of putting up with him. And he wants people to like talk smuck and like be rough with each other. I mean, it is kind of weird if people are like too nice, that kind of fakey, hee, we gotta get along and never ever are you ever. So I don't know if that's what he's picking up, like cult vibes or what. The only person I felt any affinity with was Ozu. He had his own unique powers of conversation that secured him a position within the group, but he seemed to have a hard time with the innocent smiling bit and always ended up smirking like a yokai. So see, the main character, he likes that much more than like the polite stuff. So deep down, he is like Ozu, even if he doesn't always go along, with what Ozu wants. Like when they first tried to kidnap Kaori, the main character had a hard time with that. But still, it's like he's bored and weirded out by people who might be just normal people with basic normal social skills. He seems to want drama. He wants like tension and even though he says he doesn't like Ozu, I think he likes the tension and the drama that Ozu brings, because that might be why the main character has a hard time saying no all the time, because deep down he's okay with going along with all this weird, evil grinning and drama. Okay, so the impression he made was that he was incapable of hiding the evil lurking just beneath his skin. He was the only one whose name and face I was able to remember. See, he's like drawn to this. It's like, why can't he remember the faces of like the normal, nice people? Frankly, I wish I would have forgotten them. That summer, the club took a trip to a forest on the prefectural border between Kyoto and Osaka for 2 nights and 3 days. There was a softball practice for amusement, but we were mainly there to get to know each other. You're always so smiling and getting along, so I doubt there could be any more ice to break at this point, I thought unkindly. See, what is his problem? But he's like, oh, there's no ice to break. But meanwhile, he could just go up and start talking to someone and be nice and be like, oh, what classes do you take? Oh, where are you from? Basic stuff. I don't know what his problem is. But then on the second day, after a meeting in one room of the outdoor activity center where we were staying, a middle-aged man I had never seen before was suddenly introduced by one of the upperclassmen. It was so sudden. He was on the fat side with a face that looked like he'd been stuffing it with marshmallows, and his glasses were too small, so they looked like they were embedded into his head. Before long, he began to speak. He was putting an awful lot of effort into talking about love and the ills of contemporary society and how this is your fight. Are they in a cult? His slippery, exaggerated remarks went on, but I had no idea what he was trying to say. Who is this? I thought, but when I looked around, everyone else was listening appreciatively. Is he in a cult? The only ones yawning were me and Ozu sitting diagonally in front of me. After a little while, at the man's urging, club members stood up one after the other to talk about all sorts of personal matters. Some confided their anxieties, others expressed gratitude for the club's existence. Some said they were happy to be invited. One girl stood up to talk and ended up bursting into tears. The plump guy consoled her in a syrupy tone. "You're not wrong, sweetheart. I believe you. All of us here believe you." Oh my gosh, they're in a cult. Ozu stood when he was called on. I was so nervous about everything when I started college. I think I was only able to adjust because I joined this club. I feel so at ease with everyone here. I really think this is an amazing group. He spoke so artlessly. It was as if he hadn't been yawning at all. So Ozu's a good BSer. And then what happened? Hanuki pressed me for the rest of the story. Maybe it was because she was a little drunk, but she sounded sort of affectionate. I got called on and said whatever, but then the plump guy said he would come to my room and talk later. That's when I realized I was in for some trouble. On the way back to my room, I ducked into the bathroom and killed time until there was no one left in the lobby. Then I headed down to the entryway and went outside. And you ran into Ozu there. Exactly. When I snuck out of the outdoor activity center and saw Ozu appear out of the darkness, I thought I had encountered an ancient forest-dwelling yokai. After quickly realizing that it was Ozu, I still didn't lower my guard, because I figured he was an assassin sent by Mello. He would wind a rope around me and present me to the plump man to foil my escape. I could be locked in a basement torture cell that reeked like nukazuke pickles and grilled about every last detail of bittersweet memories, such as my first crush in high school. I wasn't about to let them get away with that so easily. As I scowled at him, he whispered, "Hurry, you're running away, right? I'm coming with." Having no choice then but to sympathize with each other, we went through the dark forest. To descend from the outdoor activity center to the farming village at the base of the mountain, we had to walk a truly pitch-black road, but Ozu had a flashlight, which was a big help. He was the kind of guy who was prepared for any eventuality. I had left my luggage in my room, but I wasn't concerned, as I hadn't brought anything important. Cars went by now and then, and each time one passed, we drove into the trees and hid. "What a big adventure," Hanuki said with exaggerated admiration. "I don't know. I'm not sure whether our desperation was warranted. It's possible that if we had stayed that night, nothing would have happened," I said. "But it was a religious club, no?" "Well, yeah, but after that, I just got one phone call. No repeated soliciting. Maybe they never considered me a promising target to begin with." Maybe not. So you walked down the mountain road, and then what?" she asked. "Well, we got up the mountain and went through some fields. We figured once we got to the national highway, we would be able to get a lift, but since it was the middle of the night, there was almost no cars, and we couldn't get anyone to stop. Not that I would stop for two creepy, empty-headed guys in the middle of the night either." That's rough. So after that, we just walked a ton, found a sign, and headed towards the nearest station. It was so far away because we were in the middle of nowhere. We finally arrived at around 4 a.m., but we were paranoid that someone would come looking for us there, so we walked along the tracks to the next station. It was very Stand By Me. We bought canned coffee to kill time outside the station and then boarded the first train. Dang. I slept like a dead man on the train. My legs were totally shot. "And that's how you became tight with Ozu?" "No, we're about as tight as a loose screw," I said, and Hanuki cackled. "But Ozu does have an innocent side," she said. "Not that I've ever seen." "Oh, come on. You've never heard about his girlfriend?" That caught my attention. I leaned forward in spite of myself. What? Ozu has a girlfriend? Yeah, a girl he met his freshman year in the film club. He hasn't introduced her to his master, and I've never met her either. I guess he doesn't want her to see how he is in other settings. It's pathetic, but also kind of cute, don't you think? He even asked me for advice about her once. Damn it all to hell. Seeing me quaking in anger, Hanuki seemed terribly amused. What was her name again? Hanuki took me to a place in Pontocho where she was a regular, Bar Moon Walk, and as we talked all kinds of shit about Ozu. See, it's like his only hobby talking crap about Ozu. We got along better and better. Bad mouthing really brings people together. Eventually, I told her about what happened at the laundromat. They wanted your underwear that badly? She cocked her head, laughing. Not even joking, it really sucks when all your underwear suddenly goes missing at once. As we carried on like that, the night deepened, but Hanuki didn't lose any momentum. Buffeted by the nightlife racket, I grew tired. I couldn't go on drinking alcohol forever either, and I felt that I needed some air. When Hanuki's drunk eyes started to twinkle alluringly, I began to miss my 4.5 mat tatami room. I want to go home ASAP, and when I get there, I want to select something from my library of obscenities without mulling over this and that, and then dive straight into my futon. So a girl starts looking at him like, ooh, starting to maybe flirt a little bit, and his first thought is, I need to go home right now and look at my library of obscenities, and then go into bed. But things proceeded in a way that betrayed expectations. Oh, since we lived in the same neighborhood, we ended up grabbing a taxi back together, and the way her eyes were gleaming, oh no, she's gonna see Kaori and it's gonna be weird. Yeah, I mean, seeing like a doll of a woman, just sitting in someone's room, in the middle of the room, that would be a huge red flag. Yeah, and the way her eyes were gleaming, I lost faith in my ability to steer reality. Hanuki had been watching the night scenery go by outside, but when she turned to me and laughed quietly to herself, heh heh, she looked like she was about to eat me. Her apartment was near Mikage Dori, facing Kawabata Dori. Her feet were unsteady. By the time I had decided to escort her to her place, oh, okay, so she's not going to see Kaori, and she invited me in for tea, I no longer had any idea who I was, where I had come from, or where I was going. I felt as helpless as if I had been left behind in the eternal flow of time. I trembled like an abandoned cat out in the rain. Ever since passing through the cursed gates of puberty, I've been keeping my Johnny miserable. Among the Johnnies of other men were surely a countless lot that did what they pleased without any regard for respectability. But with an owner like me, my Johnny was unable to show off the full extent of his mischief in broader society, and his true powers were kept under tight wraps. Though a clever hawk hides its talons, it wasn't as if hot-blooded Johnny could tolerate such empty circumstances forever. If given an opening, he would have confirmed his raison d'etre by throwing off my restraints and haughtily rearing his head. Hey, my turn's coming up, right? His fearless voice would say over and over, and each time I would reply, your chance has not yet come, and scold him harshly with a stay where you are. I'm a respectable, civilized member of contemporary society. I'm a gentleman, and I have lots of other things to do. I argue that I don't have time to occupy myself with sexy time games, just to give Johnny space to do what he pleases. Is my chance ever going to actually come? Johnny would grumble. Don't patronize me with your half-assed consolations. Oh, don't be like that. I can't help but look down on you. You're down there. I know you care more about your brain than me. Shit, I wish I lived upstairs. Don't pout. It's pathetic. I guess good things don't actually come to those who wait, huh? With that, he would loll to the side and sulk. It's not as if I don't care for him, so it pained me to watch him waiting with no signs of any opportunities on the horizon. The naughtier he got, the more I saw myself in him, barking like a lone wolf, unable to come to an understanding with the world. My compassion only grew. Is he doomed to frolic only in the occasional fantasy world, wasting his precious talents? The thought had me holding back tears. Don't cry, Johnny would say. Sorry, I was being selfish. No, I'm sorry, I would say. Thus, Johnny and I would make up. Well, if that's how you imagine my days going, you wouldn't be wrong. Yeah, he has a pretty active imagination. Hanuki's room was tidy. There weren't many extraneous objects. I got the feeling she would pick up and go wherever she liked at the drop of a hat, which made me jealous. It was like night and day in comparison to my chaotically chaotic 4.5 mat tatami room. I'm sorry, I think I've had one too many, Hanuki cackled as she made some herbal tea. Her eyes were giving off that dubious light. At some point, she had taken off her jacket and was wearing only a blouse on top. I had no idea when she did that. She opened the window to the balcony. Since it faced Kawabata Dori, we could see the trees lining the Takano River. Nice location next to the river, right? Though the cars are a little loud, she said. If you go up to the roof, you can see Daimonji. But I no longer had any interest in things like Mount Daimonji. I was facing that classic example of an extraordinary situation, being invited into a room where a woman lives alone and drinking tea alone with her, and thinking how to get through it while maintaining my dignity like a gentleman. History, physics, psychology, biology, literature, pseudoscience. I mobilized my knowledge from every possible field, and my brain's internal combustion engine roared. If Ozu were here, I wouldn't have to be so nervous. Things would go fine, I thought. But geez, isn't Hanuki being a bit too careless? Leading me into her room after midnight was dangerous. Certainly I was her classmate from English school, and we had known each other for 6 months, and I was her acquaintance, Ozu's best friend. But any woman with decent powers of judgment probably wouldn't be able to rest until she had turtle-tied me, wrapped me into a sheet, hung me from the balcony upside down, and set the whole kit and caboodle on fire. With complete disregard for my worrying about her on behalf of her drunk self, she began to tell me in a sweet voice about the person she was supposed to meet that evening. I was surprised to learn that she had been waiting for Dr. Kubozuka himself of Kubozuka Dental. Hearing that he had a wife and children was even more shocking. I found it inexcusable that someone in that position would abuse the power of his station to plan a rendezvous with her, but she said that she had been working for him a long time, and a dense male student like me could hardly comprehend the intricacies of adult relationships. I was thinking I shouldn't make any reckless comments, but she spoke more and more about her relationship with the dentist and asked for my advice. Oh. Maybe it was wrong of me to leave him in Kiyamachi, she murmured. I gradually found less and less to say. Yeah, I would too. This is a bit awkward. As I grew quieter, Hanuki scooted closer. Hey, what are you making such a scary face for? She asked. Alas, this is my resting face. That's not true. You didn't have any wrinkles in those spots before, she said, leaning her face closer to my brow. Then she suddenly tried to lick my forehead. I freaked out and recoiled. She clung to me with a blatantly bizarre look in her eyes. Okay, I don't know what to make of the situation anymore. I thought I knew what was going on over here, but then things just took a turn. As for what I realized at that moment, there are 4 things I can list. One was that the swell of her breasts were pressing against me. I tried to accept this fact calmly, but in line with the majority of expectations, that was extremely difficult. I'm someone who has always found it shameful that men are driven into a frenzy by this mystery swell only women possess, and though I had spent long years observing them via video, I hadn't managed to solve the puzzle of how we could be ruled by these things when their only real merit was their soft roundness. Naturally, given the location of Hanuki's breasts at this moment, I was not averse to being aroused, But it wouldn't do to allow my simple heart to be clenched in the thorny talons of such a simple plumpness and squander the chastity I had had no choice but to protect all these long years. My pride wouldn't allow it. The second was that when I looked up to avoid being licked, I saw a corkboard. Among all the other photos pinned to it was one she must have taken on a trip. It was Italy. Colossio! Despite the extraordinary nature of the situation I was in, seeing the Colossio there instantly reminded me of what the fortune teller in Kiyamachi had said. Was this the chance I had been waiting for? The third was that Johnny, that hooligan, began to assert his presence, as if the good things he had been waiting for had come. He reared his head, saying, "Hey, hey, is it my turn?" When I tried to scold him, he made a convincing argument. "But isn't this your chance? I've been holding back for so long. Enough is enough. It's about time you let me take the reins." The fourth was that if I moved left along the wall we were against and went through the kitchen, the bathroom was on the other side. You could say it was the perfect place to hole up, clear my mind, and wait for the situation to blow over. So he wants to run to the bathroom and just kind of hide there for a while. Hanuki tangled herself around me and kept trying to lick my face. She's so weird. My mind strayed from its straying, and Johnny squirmed ominously as he appealed for a place to shine. Apparently he was plotting to soak up every drop of every type of desire from throughout my whole body and seize hegemony. The general staff, that is my brain, hadn't given the go sign yet, but Johnny and his party were crowding the entrance to the office. "What are you doing? I'm pretty sure your chance is right now." "This isn't what we agreed upon," they roared. Sitting down in the general staff office, I plugged my ears so I wouldn't have to hear Johnny's voice, and then stared down in earnest at the operation map of my life. Can you call yourself civilized if you let yourself get swept away by a moment's desire? Is it possible to maintain your dignity if you take advantage of a woman you don't even know to do the deed while she's restlessly drunk? That is a good point, I solemnly said, but that only made Johnny start pounding on the office's iron door. He was virtually half mad. "If we can do the deed, that's all that matters," he was shouting. "Surrender control to me. What's the point of doing it just to do it? Nothing should take precedence over one's pride." In response to my argument, Johnny switched to an entreating tone. "Come on, what's the point of a man's chastity anyhow? If you guard it forever, who in the world is going to be like, 'Nice job, buddy'? This might be a doorway to a new world. Don't you want to see what's on the other side?" "I do want to see what's on the other side, but it's not time yet." "You say that, but isn't this your chance? You saw the Colossio. It's just like that old fortune teller predicted." "The one who decides whether to seize the chance or not is me, not you," I said. "Rawr! I'm gonna cry. You're gonna make me cry." I turned my heart to stone. I inched my way along the wall to run away from Hanuki, who was still scooting into me, but she clung all the same. We moved across the room in tandem, like some strange creature that lurks deep in the jungle, and eventually slid into the kitchen. "Ah, cockroach!" The moment I said that, Hanuki whipped around in surprise. I capitalized on that opening to finally stand up. Then I ran into the bathroom to hole up and locked the door. It's too bad it didn't seem to be the kind of thing you could be proud of doing, even though I was doing it to maintain my pride. I don't think I need to tell you that Johnny was heartbroken and wailing. "Are you okay? Do you feel sick?" Hanuki called to me from the outside of the bathroom in a carefree voice. I said, "I'm fine, just," and listened. She appeared to eventually go back to the main room. Shut up in the bathroom, I considered the 3 women I was involved with. One of them was a pen pal whose face I had never seen, one was a doll, and one was someone who licked people's faces when she got drunk. But in the past 2 years of my indifferently lived life, my vicinity had never been so full of cheer. Oh, the sweet life! Perhaps the wind changed when Ozu brought Kaori to my room. From now on, I'll meet woman after woman. My planner will be crammed with dates. and I'll have to whisper so many sweet nothings my throat will bleed. Just the thought was enough to make me sick of it. I could just see the nervous breakdown in my future. I'd end up having to race up Mount Hiei. If I wasn't aiming to be a master of sexy time games, I would need to settle on one woman. Of the three of them, one was a literal doll, so I would have to count her out. Another I was forbidden from meeting due to my pen pal philosophy. Obviously, that left only Hanuki. Well, if he got out more, he could, meet more girls. The Kiyamachi fortune teller had predicted Colosio, and lo and behold, here was a Colosio photo. This wasn't about Johnny's superficial whining for the initiative to be yielded to my lower half. Precisely because this was my chance, I needed to keep my genteel wits about me and wait for Hanuki to sober up so I could restart merger negotiations through the proper channels. She wouldn't lick the face of someone she's not even interested in simply because she's drunk, would she? She's rather eccentric herself, so I wouldn't be surprised if she were weird enough to like me. If I turn over a new leaf here, I should be able to manifest enough power to turn my future into gold. I'm confident in my latent abilities. They're just so latent that I lost track of them. I calmed my mind. I waited for Johnny to simmer down, and when I finally came out of the bathroom, Hanuki was sprawled on the floor in the middle of the room, whooshing like a pair of bellows as she slept. I sat in the corner to wait for her to wake up. How long is he gonna sit in the corner? Probably because I was drunk, I did something out of character. That is, I nodded off. I had been leaning against the wall, but at some point I had slumped over. I sensed an alarming presence. Rubbing my eyes as I sat up, I saw Nura Rihyun sitting politely before me. Suppressing the urge to shriek, "Yeah!" and jump to my feet, I saw it was Ozu. That was strange. I should have been in Hanuki's room, but here was Ozu sitting in front of me. I imagined that perhaps the dental hygienist Hanuki had been a disguise, and once that skin was peeled off, it was Ozu underneath. Could it be that I had been getting my face licked by Ozu disguised as a woman? He has such a vivid imagination. That I had been about to negotiate a merger with Ozu disguised as a woman? "What are you doing here?" I finally asked. He smoothed his hair down with an affected air. "I was having fun with our precious underclassmen in Sanjo when I got the call. I came over in a cab. You should try putting yourself in my shoes." I didn't know what he was talking about. In other words, Hanuki's is my master's friend, and I'm close with her as well, so I know she has one weakness. When she drinks too much, her rational mind goes out to lunch, I guess you could say. Well, something like that. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. "Did you, by any chance, nearly get your face licked?" "Yes, I nearly did." Usually she manages to restrain herself, but she had so much fun drinking with you tonight, she went a tad overboard. That is, please let everything that happened tonight be water under the bridge. What? I was stunned. She says she's sorry. Not that it does her any good to start getting embarrassed about it now, Ozu said. Just then, as if in protest, came a rourke from the bathroom. It seemed Hanuki had holed up in there and was receiving just desserts from the alcohol. "But why are you here?" I asked. "My role is to explain the situation and console you as her representative. I'd be amiss to ignore my master's friend when she's in trouble." Hanuki had very nearly licked my face, and I had been under the impression I had found a turning point in my destiny, but once the mechanism was revealed, the whole thing turned out to be idiotic. I was glad I had kept my grasp on the reins of reason, but it pissed me off that Ozu was the one hitting me with this bucket of cold water. "You didn't do anything, right?" said Ozu. "I didn't do anything, just nearly got my face licked." "Well, a guy of your caliber, yeah, I can buy it. You probably got freaked out by her advances and locked yourself in the bathroom." "I did not. I looked after her like any gentleman would," I said. "Yeah, I bet." "Damn it, I'm so fucking pissed." "Please don't get too upset with Hanuki. I mean, come on, she's in there hugging the toilet. That's punishment enough as it is." No, I'm pissed off at you. I mean, I'm just in the crossfire, Ozu said. Pretty much any time something shitty happens to me, you're there, you freaking god of pestilence. Oh, there you go, saying such horrible things again. Why do you think I went out of my way to ditch a fun party and come over here? To console you as your best friend. I don't need your pity. Besides, every time I find myself in an uncomfortable situation like that, you're the one to blame. You shouldn't be ashamed of yourself talking like that. I'm surprised you can blurt out those sorts of accusations with such confidence. If I hadn't met you, I would have lived with some significance. I would have applied myself to my studies, dated a black-haired maiden, and relished every moment of my untarnished student life. That's right, I'm sure of it, I said. Sounds like you're still a little drunk. It hit me today how completely I've wasted my time as a student. Not that it's any consolation, but I think you would have met me no matter what. I just know it. No matter what happened, I would have done anything in my power to correct you. Okay, this is from the first universe. You can struggle against fate all you want, but it's futile. He held up a pinky finger. We're connected by the black thread of fate. The horrific image of two men bound by boneless hams by a dark thread, sinking to dark watery depths came to mind, and I shuddered. More importantly, I hear you've had a girlfriend for 2 years. How about it? Bullseye, right? When I said that, Ozu put on a shady grin. Hoo hoo hoo. What's so funny? Not telling. It's bullshit that a guy like you can be off having fun and I get nothing, I said. Now, the fact that I'm happy doesn't matter right now. For today, what's important is you resign yourself to the fact that this was all a dream and swiftly retreat. Ozu held out a box of cake. What's this? It's Castella, from Hanuki as an apology, so I hope you'll let all this go without a fuss. Ozu had the face of a cashier plotting to take over the shop. I walked through the town as the sky was growing lighter, and after the banquet sense of desolation hung in the air, and the dawn chill sunk into my bones. Hugging myself in the middle of Mikagebashi, I gazed at the fresh green shrouding both banks of the Takano River. This pure morning scenery was a rare and thus refreshing sight for me, which made my dejection upon arriving back at Shimogamo Yusuiso that much worse. The broken light next to the entryway, the wooden shoe cubbies, and the dusty hallway felt all grimier than usual. I went down the cold hallway with heavy feet and collapsed into bed in my 4.5 mat tatami room. In my futon, as it warmed up and softened, I went over all the many events of the previous day. It pissed me off that Ozu had shown up at the end, and it sucked that the future with Hanuki I had sketched out in her bathroom couldn't even last a day, but so what? When you stop to think about it, all that really happened was that I had found myself back at the start of romance chutes and ladders, right? That was practically a daily occurrence. You got cake in exchange for the wound to your heart. That's a fair trade, and you know it. You gotta just deal with it. Just deal. But I couldn't. The crack in my heart refused to be filled. Aw. From inside my futon, I stole a glance at my non-verbal roommate. Gosh, I forgot she was there. Kaori was leaning against the bookcase as usual, quietly reading 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I abruptly sat up and tried stroking her hair. It felt like I was cuddling with a delicate black-haired maiden who had given her undivided attention to a book. I was deranged. I'm such a stupid bastard, I groaned, in spite of myself, and retreated to my futon. It was pathetic of me to have had the fantasy that my campus life was coming up roses. Or maybe if I had acted according to the fortune teller's prediction, I let Johnny take charge and done the unpardonable with Hanuki while she was drunk, and my new life really would have been starting right about now? No, that could never have happened. Not on my watch. The joining of a man and a woman should be a more solemn affair. Who would want it to be as easy as trying a pair of shoelaces? I thought the winds had changed when Ozu brought Kaori to my room, but of the 3 women surrounding me, Hanuki had already dropped out. The dream didn't even last half a day. The 2 left to me were the pen pal I could never meet and the woman I was living with who wasn't human. In other words, there might as well have been no one left. I need to face this heartless reality. It's okay. This is me we're talking about. I can do it. I mean, yeah, see, he has such like detrimental thinking. All he has, you just quit the club you're in now. You're obviously not very happy there, and try out different clubs, meet new people, meet other girls. You know, he doesn't have to stay in like where he is right now forever. Time moves forward, for the good and the bad. You know, so bad times, they'll eventually pass away into good times, and good times will turn bumpy and have some bad times, but you know, things will turn good again. So, you know, he doesn't have to lay here and sulk forever. As I lay in my futon gazing at Cowrie's face and profile, Johnny nearly started to wriggle by mistake, but I fell asleep, so that ended without incident. Okay, I'm glad. I woke up late because you know, Cowrie has been with that, was it Jogasaki? You know how clean she is. I don't know. She does seem immaculate, but you know, you don't want to go there. I woke up late and decided to go to a cafe next to Damachi for dinner. As I passed by the Kamo River Delta, I could see the kanji for big on the mountain in the distance. Okay, we've read this before, but I'll keep reading. Illuminated clearly by the evening sun. I bet you can see the bonfire really well from here. I nearly began imagining what it would be like to stand there with Keiko Higuchi and watch the shape of the Okuribi burn, but daydreaming out in the evening breeze would only make me hungry again, so I found a good stopping point and cut it out. I decided to distract myself from these feelings with no outlet by returning to Shimogamo Yusu Iso, sitting at my desk and concentrating on writing a reply to Keiko. Yay! There we go. Greetings. These days, see, this is good practice, you know? Greetings. These days, it's so muggy. It's as if summer came early, huh? My room doesn't get much airflow, so it feels even hotter. Sometimes I get seized by the urge to string a hammock up in the hallway and camp out there, but that would be going too far, I suppose. It's a drag that I can't study in my room this time of year. I imagine I'll be holed up in the library for the next few months. There aren't any distractions at the library, though, so I'll probably make decent progress. He's kind of making his life sound better than it actually is, probably. I'm glad you're enjoying 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I had a map open while I read, so I could chart the course of the Nautilus. That way, I felt like I was on the sea voyage, too. You should give it a try. I haven't read Stevenson's Treasure Island yet. I'll find a copy at the bookstore and have a look. Old adventure novels have their white-knuckle moments, but they also tend to move quite leisurely at points, an exquisite balance. I like that this one is an adventure novel, but not bloody. I don't know what an Irish pub is like, but I'd like to try going sometime. These days, I just do laps between school and my lodgings. I don't have much occasion to go out on the town. Since this spring, I've been busy with labs and lectures. From the outside, my life probably looks bleak, but I can say it has been pretty fulfilling. The world of science is fascinating, but the scope has expanded so much since the 19th century when Jules Verne was writing. It's too bad we can no longer get a view of the whole so easily. Still, it's thanks to that expansion that we're able to enjoy our contemporary lifestyles, so I really can't complain. Regarding what you said in your previous letter, Miss Higuchi, I fully intend to make good use of the chances given to me and continue improving myself. For that, health is important, so I make a point of exercising whenever I can. I'll take care with my nutrition as well. But it's not as if I'm chowing down on fish burgers every day. Please don't misunderstand. I'm the sort of man who won't hesitate to down a barrel's worth of aloe yogurt if it will improve my well-being. I'm sure you're busy, but please remember to take care of yourself too. Humming and humming as I went, I finished my letter to Keiko Higuchi. I embellished a few points, yeah, I noticed, but I think this would be rightly called creative direction. Even when I'm writing things I don't actually mean, along the way I start to feel as though I've been thinking them all along. Gosh, he's into Lululand. While I'm while I'm writing a letter, I become a model student, and when I'm finished, it's as if I'm waking from a dream, rediscovering the me who has gotten lost down some path of beasts is rather painful. Writing about my intention to improve myself was shameless even for me. I have the will, but the way is shrouded in darkness. What can I do to improve myself? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was improving only the parts of me that needn't have been touched. After putting my finished letter into an envelope, I reread Keiko's letter. She said she liked the rainy season. She liked to look at the hydrangeas veiled in rain. She pitied the poor harpooner cooped up in the submarine in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. She told me, of all people, to take care of myself. What kind of woman might she be? The letter was supposed to distract me, but ironically, my heart got riled up instead. I clutched her letter to my breast and sighed. That was sickening behavior even for me, so sickening that it brought me back to reality. I absorbed myself in squeezing the sponge bear I picked up at the laundromat. Its soft texture put my mind at ease. This thing got cuter every time I looked at it, so I decided to give it a name. After thinking for 5 minutes, I dubbed it Mochi Guma for its unparalleled softness. Okay, I'll take another break and I'll be back in a bit.